Check, test, 1 2 1 2. Sound check, 1 2. Test, test, test. Looks like we are straight over here. Sound check, test, 1 2 1 2. Test over here. Facebook, sound check, test. Oops, let me turn my mic on IG. Sound check, test, 1 2 1 2. Sound check, testing, 1 2 1 2. We are good here, there. We are good here. Let's make sure we are working over here. Get things working here. Somebody needs to make an app. Somebody needs to make an app where you can just push one button and it streams to, you just connect all your accounts and then just streams to all the platforms all at the same time. Somebody tried this, like, what year is it? It's 2024 now. It was around 2016, 2017. I was on somebody's podcast and I actually mentioned this very idea that somebody, it's not going to be me because I'm not a tech guy, but I said somebody should create an app where you can just stream to all the streaming platforms, just push a button and it'll just connect all your accounts. So you can stream everywhere at the same time. And this guy reached out to me. He was from Australia. And he said, Dre, I actually do stuff like that and I'm going to try to do it. And he said, I would charge like whatever he said. He said, if you give me $250, I'm going to go try it. And I'm going to try to use your accounts to see if I can do it. And if I do it, then you can be my beta tester. And if I fail, then I'll just give you your money back. And he tried for like 3 weeks and then he came back and said, Dre, I can't do it. He gave me the money back. So it can't be done simply because of those of you who know tech, like the APIs. I don't even remember what API even stands for, but basically the access that each app gives you to let you do stuff. Like this app doesn't give the same access as that app. And then you got all these problems. So you can't actually do it. So anyway, what we are doing here. Good morning. What's going on, Angelica? So I told you all we were going to do this week, that today I was going to give you all just a background of who I am, where I'm from, where I came from, why I do what I do, just so all of you understand. For those of you who are familiar with me and you have been following my material since before, let's say October of 2024, you may know a good amount of my background, but you probably don't know the whole thing. I'm going to give that here today. And even if you have heard a lot of my background, you will like hearing the story again because it's actually a good story, if I may say so myself. For those of you who are new, those of you who just heard of me over the last, let's say 2 or 3 months, I'm doing this specifically because many of you have no idea who I am. Maybe you've heard me talking about things and maybe you like the way that I talk about stuff, or you are intrigued by something I said, or maybe you disagree with something that I said. I'm going to give you my background here today so you understand who I am, where I come from, why I do what I do, how I've gotten to be in the place that I'm at. So I'll give you a brief intro that I always give. Then I'm gonna go through the entire thing, and we'll take about maybe go about 9 o'clock with this. Then I'll take questions. So this is especially for those of you on TikTok. A lot of you never heard of me because I wasn't really messing with TikTok like that until this year. But on all these other apps, YouTube, Instagram, especially Facebook, LinkedIn, maybe some of you know some of you know me from different things. Some of you know me from basketball. Some of you know me from business. Some of you know me because I was on somebody's podcast you like. Maybe you heard me speak on the stage, you saw one of my TED Talks, read one of my books, but many of you don't know the full rounded circle. So that's what we're going to do today. So my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day, former 9-year pro athlete, author of 35 books, on 4 TEDx Talks, created this brand called Work on Your Game. Our job here is to help ambitious people who are serious about taking your game from where it is to where you want to go. And our framework is based around mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability. Main thing people get from me, they say, Dre, I love the fact you keep it real. You're no BS, no fluff. You get straight to the point. All that said, let's get to the point here. And let me give you my background. As I'm talking, if you have a question or comment or anything that I say, you can put it in the comments while I am speaking, and I'll address it when I'm done. If you're on TikTok, you might have to post your comment again because there's a lot of notifications that come through on TikTok when I'm talking. I might not see it if you post it now. So you might want to hold it till we get through to the end. Traditional all day. Good morning to you. Good to see you. So starting in the background, I come from the city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I now live in Miami, Florida, but I grew up in Philly. I didn't move out of Philly until I was in my 20s, like after I started playing ball, which I'll get to in a second. Was always into sports growing up. Got around to, I played a little bit of football. And if you're in my age bracket, so I'm 42 years of age as of today, but if you're in my age bracket, you know, if you played any type of football back then, even street football, I'm not even talking like with the pads on, but street football, we all thought we were going to be like Deion Sanders. Because Deion Sanders was very talented, very skilled. He had the flash, he had the style, and he was actually very good. So I thought I was going to be Deion because I played a little bit of football. I had some speed, at least compared to the kids on my block, and then I played a little bit of baseball, but never really played football. Like my family, I grew up with in a 2-parent household. Both my parents are still together to this day, at least the last that I heard of. And I have one sister who's a year older than me. So my parents were not really about making me into an athlete, but of course, with a young male, you got to give them some type of outlet. So played, you know, all the backyard, playground, what do they call it? Playground and what we called it the driveway. Yeah, we didn't really have a backyard. Where I come from, there's no yards. Well, some people had yards, but the yards are pretty small. We had driveway, so that means it's concrete, not grass. And played, you know, touch football. Somebody had a portable basketball court, et cetera, et cetera. Went to the football practices, but my family couldn't afford football equipment. So I would go to the football practices for a few weeks, and then finally the coaches said after a couple weeks, this was at a team called, the playground was called Simons, but the neighborhood was called Oak Lane. So any of you from Philadelphia, we got anybody from Philadelphia in here? So if you're from Philadelphia, you know the neighborhood called Oak Lane. I'm from Mount Airy. We also call it Uptown. All of those together, we call it Uptown. But the people in Oak Lane had a football team. My neighborhood didn't have one. So I would go over there to the football practices. And after a few weeks, the coaches said, okay, starting next week, y'all going to start bringing your Allentowns in the house. Shout out to Allentown. They said, start bringing your football equipment so we can start actually hitting and tackling and all that stuff. And I told my parents what the football coaches said, because I've been going for a few weeks consistently, but it was with no equipment. I told them, the coaches said, bring equipment. I didn't have any equipment. So my parents, they were kind of looking at each other, not in front of me, but they looked at each other and said, all right, how are we going to do this? Because football equipment costs money if you play football. So the helmet costs money. You got to get the shoulder pads, and there's all these other pads and cleats and all this other stuff you got to put on to play football, as opposed to other sports that you don't need a lot of stuff. So eventually my parents told me, look, we can't really afford football equipment, because the way that my mom was pretty much in charge. I mean, my dad was there. He did his thing, but my mom pretty much was in charge of the kids. And anytime she would buy something for one kid, she would buy something for the other kid. And my sister obviously wasn't playing football. And with the cost of football, she's like, well, how am I going to balance this out? If I buy all this stuff for him, what would I get for her to kind of balance it out? And she wasn't doing anything that cost that kind of money. So she eventually told me, look, you're not going to be able to play football because we don't have hockey, same thing. So we're not going to be able to finance this football equipment, but you could play baseball because the local playground had a baseball team. So you could play baseball if you're not going to play football. So when I went and played baseball, my dad would actually coach the youth baseball team for the years that I played. And even though I did play baseball, the good thing is you don't need a ton of equipment. You can have no group equipment. So you got a bunch of bats and you need a glove. That's pretty much all you need. Maybe some cleats. But back then, if you're 9 years old, you could play in sneakers. So I would play baseball for several years. Wasn't really good at baseball. I realized when I was around, and I'm still dabbling in every sport, but not serious about anything. When I got around to about age 13 or 14, I realized that I'm not going anywhere with baseball. Now, I'm a person who, even back then, I knew that I figured my future was going to be in something based in athletics. I knew my thing wasn't going to be like this really great student and go and do something like work-wise, like what I'm doing now, at least not my initial foray into the professional world, for a couple of reasons, which I'll get to in a moment. So if I forget to mention that, make sure you remind me. But when I get to the college years, it'll make perfect sense. So I knew baseball wasn't going to be it. And I said, if I'm even going to play in high school, this is when I'm like 13. If I'm even going to play a sport in high school, I know it ain't going to be football because I never played. And it damn sure ain't going to be baseball because I'm not that good. Because if any of you played baseball growing up, you know how in baseball they have the pitching machine. So the pitching machine is like somebody just stands there at the pitcher's mound and they put the ball into the machine. The machine just throws the ball or pitches the ball straight down the pipe, same spot every time. By the time I was maybe 12 or 13, I got good at that. I was actually hitting the ball pretty well and having some success. And then by the time I got to 14, what we started doing was playing fast pitch baseball, where there was an actual human throwing the ball, and human doesn't always throw the ball in the same spot. And I was kind of in some ways scared of the ball coming at me when somebody was pitching. So I knew I wasn't going to make it in baseball. If you can't hit, you can't play baseball. I could run the bases pretty good. I was pretty good at catching the ball when I played in the outfield, but you're not going to make it in baseball. You can't hit the damn ball. So that was it. Killed my baseball career. I decided to kill my baseball career, and I went over to the basketball court. Now, if you're from the hood, especially if you're black from the hood, you know that everybody plays basketball at some level for some point, especially young males. I'm not talking about the women. But in the neighborhood that I come from, I'll come from a neighborhood that's 99.9% black. I didn't see too many white people walking around where I live. Everybody tries basketball at least for some time. You'll try out for the local team. You might try out for your school team a year or two. I finally get over to basketball. I'm 14 years of age. Now, I had played every now and then, but I never played seriously. And naturally, I was bad at basketball. The problem with this is if you're trying to play a sport, we got anybody here who played a sport in college or played at the professional level? Any of you who played a sport in college or at the professional level, you know that you probably started playing the sport, when you were like 7, 8, 9 years old, maybe 10 years old. If you start playing a sport when you're 14, the chances of you making it even to play in college are very slim because you got this small window of time to actually get good enough to be a collegiate player at any level, let alone at the pro level. So this is my situation. So I go to my high school. And again, if you come from the place that I come from, some of you who come from other places, you wouldn't understand this, you will understand it, but you cannot directly relate to it. I know that some of you, if you come from a town, let's say when I went to college, I met kids like white kids, and some of them black, from other neighborhoods outside of the city or outside of a city period where your high school, all of you went to high school, right? So how many of you, your high school sports situations, you had a freshman team, a junior varsity team, and a varsity team? Put me, if any of you went to a high school that had this, you didn't have to play. But if you went to a high school where the sports teams, there was a freshman team, there was a JV team, junior varsity, and then there was a varsity team. Now, I'm asking that question to frame this to help you understand, because when I started playing, again, I was only 14 years of age. I was already 14 years of age. I go to high school. I went to high school called George Washington Carver High School of Engineering and Science in Philadelphia. It's in North Philadelphia. And in short, we call it ENS. If you're from Philly, you know the school called ENS. It was a magnet high school. And we didn't have a freshman team. We did not have a JV team. All we had was one team. We just had the varsity team. So it's just one basketball team. There's like 12 guys on the basketball team. Our team had one coach. The coach he also worked at the school. He was like a health teacher and gym teacher, that guy. His name was Brown, Mr. Brown. So in Texas, you got all teams. Most places there's all teams. But in the city of Philadelphia, at the time, I think by the time I was a senior, there was a little bit of a JV team. Now they probably got everything. But back then, I went to high school from 1996 was my freshman year, and I graduated in 2000. So at that time, a lot of the schools were just very underfunded. They didn't have enough people to have another team. You had one person coaching the main team. He didn't even have an assistant coach. It was just one guy. So everybody tried out for the basketball team. My freshman year, I remember it was like 150 kids in our school, the boys, all tried out for the basketball team. And you had one day, and if you didn't impress that one day, it was pretty much a wrap. I got cut from the basketball team tryouts freshman year. I tried out again sophomore year, got cut sophomore year, tried out again junior year, got cut junior year. Now, what's happening in this time period is that I'm still working on my game. I'm going to the park, practicing by myself, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel myself getting better, even though I didn't really have any I couldn't show you anything tangible that said I'm doing better because I have this outcome. I wasn't really doing anything. Wasn't on my high school team, even at the local park. The first team I played on was a 14, and we called it 14 and under. So that meant anybody age 14 or younger could play on the team. That was the first team I played on when I was in 9th grade. And I had a couple little highlights when I was playing on that team. This is a local rec league team. This is not my high school team. And then maybe age 15, 16, playing on a couple other teams. And by my junior year, this is when people are looking at you like, yo, all right, if you're going to be a basketball player, either you should be making your high school team by now. If you're going to go somewhere in basketball, you should be on the team by your junior year. If you're not on the team in high school by your junior year, then, all right, you can keep playing basketball if you want. You can play for fun, but you ain't going anywhere in basketball. You can't even make the damn high school basketball team as a junior, which is generally the truth. Because if I looked at a lot of the young men in my neighborhood where I come from, my peers, many of them would dabble in basketball. As I told you, every young man from the hood tries to play basketball, see if we're any good, because that's the easiest sport to play. Everyone has access to it, and basketball is like the cool sport. Tennis is not cool. Baseball is not cool in the hood. At least I don't know how it is now, but then that absolutely was not. Football was cool. Problem is you need equipment to play football and you need facilities to play football. Whereas basketball, all you need is that one court is concrete, which is like the street, and you only need one ball. You can have 100 people, you can play basketball. So basketball is just accessible to everybody in the hood. And any of you from the hood, you know what I'm talking about. So all the young men where I'm from would try basketball. And if they didn't make the team at the local rec center, they might just give up basketball. They would still come to the park and play every now and then, a pickup game. Or they would come to the park and just hang out because that's where everybody's at. Where I'm from, that's what would happen. Everybody would just hang out at the playground because that's where everybody's hanging at the playground. The girls are there. The guys are there. The dudes who play for real are there. The dudes who play for fun are there. The dudes who are selling narcotics, they're there. Everybody's just hanging at the playground. That's the place where everybody hung out. Again, it's different now because people are on their phones and stuff. But back then, we didn't have phones. So if you wanted to interact with people, you had to actually leave the house and go to where actual human beings were. Some of you know what I'm talking about. If you're a little bit older, you know what I'm talking about. So then, yeah, my backyard was concrete too. So wasn't really a yard, was it? We called it a driveway because that's what you did. You drove on it, like concrete. It wasn't grass. So anyway, by my junior year, I'm not on the basketball team. So most of the kids around me would see me still, because this is what I would do. I would still go to the basketball court and I would still practice and just be practicing by myself on the park courts by myself, trying to get better. And by this point, a lot of people, everybody in the neighborhood knows each other. And they would say, Dre, why are you out here always practicing? You're not on the basketball team. You barely play on the rec league teams in the neighborhood. You haven't made the high school team. You're not going anywhere with basketball. Why do you keep doing it? So let me explain to you why I keep doing it. So this is the first thing I want you to understand about where I come from. When I decided to start trying for basketball, I did the only thing I knew how to do. So people often ask me, when they know me on a professional level now, they ask me about discipline. Like, Dre, you seem very disciplined. You're consistent in putting out your stuff, or you're consistent at, some of you who are new to following me, you're consistent in doing these live streams. You're consistent at putting out your content. You're consistent at putting out your podcasts and all these things. And they ask, where did that come from? Where did that discipline come from? Well, discipline comes from my parents. I told you I come from a 2-parent household, and my mom was kind of in charge, not kind of in charge. She was in charge of the kids. She pretty much made the decisions with the kids. And my dad he was basically co-sign whatever she said. And my parents did not work any type of a job that you would consider glamorous. Like my dad he would dabble in music. He was a music guy on the side, but his main job was pretty much at a factory. I worked with him one summer at the place he worked. It was pretty much manual labor factory work. That's pretty much what he did. He did it for his whole career. Like he started before I could even remember, when I was very young, and he worked there until he retired. He retired a few years ago. He worked that job for like 30, 40, however long, 30 some years. He worked that job. That's not that manual labor. Any of you have done any manual factory level labor? That ain't no fun job. He did that every single day for 30 years, Monday through Friday. And then he would do his music at night. So he was barely sleeping. Remember, I was talking to him like maybe 7, 8 years ago. I was like, how many hours were you sleeping during your like working years? He was like 4, 5 hours a night. Like he would literally sleep 4 or 5 hours a night for 30 years. But he went to work every day. That's the point. The other thing, my mom, same thing. I knew she worked at jobs that she didn't really like. I remember she would come home and she would get on the phone, and I don't know who she'd be talking to, but she would basically talk shit about the people she was working with because she didn't like them. And basically, you know how women are, just gossiping about people she didn't like at work. And she would do that damn near every day. And I'm bringing that up to say this. Neither of my parents had a glamorous job that was like anything that you would be like excited just because someone works a certain job. Like if I tell you that I do professional speaking or TED Talks, or I wrote books, or I played sports, those are things that are interesting because not everybody gets to do them, and it's not this normal thing that you hear on an everyday basis. But the things my parents did were normal, everyday, working class jobs, and I come from a lower middle class background. I didn't miss any meals. I didn't miss any Christmases. I didn't miss any birthdays, but I also never went on vacations. We didn't have any extra money. I never had a pair of like Jordan sneakers or none of the name brand stuff. So this is lower middle class. That's where I come from. And I'm bringing all that up to say that my parents went to work every single day. So when I started playing sports, even though my parents are not athletes, my father is like 5'8". My mom is like 5'7". I'm 6'4" tall. And yes, they are biological. So when I started playing sports, it's not like my parents were pushing me to be an athlete because they didn't know anything about how to become an athlete. They were supportive. Hey, as long as you do your schoolwork, you don't get in trouble in school, and your report card looks good, then you can go play sports. Sports was like a bonus, just like video games. If you mess up in school, you can't play sports. You mess up in school, you can't play your video games. Again, I don't know how parents are raising their kids these days. Like when the kid is old enough. I'm a parent as well. My kid's still very young, but this was the way it was. Those of you who remember, someone said men gossip too. Yes, you get what I'm saying. Get the spirit of my point. And this is where I got the discipline from. So the reason I started going to the basketball court and practicing every day is because I didn't know any other way to get better, because it's not like my dad could teach me. He's not a basketball player. I didn't have any brothers to teach me. And the men in the neighborhood, the coaches at the local rec center, it was only like 2 or 3 of them, but it's like a whole bunch of young men. And they can only give attention to the men who were showing promise. So if you were showing, thank you, Renata, for that gift, whatever that was, that hat. The heart. So in the neighborhood, if you come from where I come from, you understand this. In the neighborhood, there might be 300 young men who want to play basketball, and there are 3 coaches. So they can't give everybody attention. They can only give attention to the young men who show some promise, who look like they might do something in the sport. So they gave the attention to the few guys who looked like they were doing something, who by the age 14 or 15, they were actually on their high school teams. They were getting invited to play in tournaments and go to events because they actually showed that they had some talent. I wasn't showing any talent. And so they didn't really give me any attention. They knew me. If they were having a tryout and I came to the tryout, they knew my name. They might cut me from the team, but they knew who I was, but they couldn't give me individual attention to help me because they didn't have the resources to give me attention. And mind you, these guys are not full-time coaches. These guys have everyday 9-to-5 jobs, just like my parents, and they would come to the rec center in the evening after work to do whatever it is that they were doing. And again, where I'm from, this is how it was. And some of you know exactly what I mean. So this is where the discipline came from. And I just kept working on my game. About age 15, 16, I slowly felt like I was getting better. And by age 16, this is my junior year of high school. I'm not on the basketball team. Again, this is when I got the idea that I'm going to see if I can make it in sports. Let me see if I can become an athlete as a job. Now, mind you, I have no tangible reason to believe that this is going to work. I had no tangible reason to believe this is going to work. Only thing I had going in my favor was I'm 6'4", so I had the height to play basketball. I had other friends around me who were better than me, but they're like 5'9", 5'10". They didn't have the height. I had the height to play basketball. I had the athletic genetics, which I got, my dad says, from my grandfather, his dad, because my grandfather was tall too, and he was a basketball guy. So from maybe that, I had the genetics. I had long arms. I could run fast. I could jump high. I had the fast twitch muscles, explosiveness, all of that. I didn't really have the basketball skill, and I had the determination. I had the desire to actually do it, and I was willing to practice. So I believe just on this alone, I had a chance. But again, this is when I was 16, was that 1998. So it's not like I'm going on Instagram and somebody's saying, hey, here's what you do to go play basketball professionally. Right? Ain't no Instagram. It's barely the internet. And again, those of y'all old enough know what I mean. So this is just a pipe dream that I have in my head at age 16. Finally, my senior year of high school, I do make the basketball team. And I sat on the bench the whole year. So even though I was on the team, I remember this is a funny little anecdote. We had 6 seniors on the team my senior year, 6 of us on the team who were seniors. And I remember one game, we had a home game, and we were doing bad in the first half. I had not gotten in the game in the first half. And in the first half, I hadn't gotten in the game, and our team wasn't looking good. And the coach decided to shake up the lineup to start the second half of the game because we had I think we had a sophomore and maybe 2 juniors who were starters, but we were playing terribly. I wasn't playing, I was on the bench, and the coach decided, all right, in the second half, we're going to try a different lineup. So to start the second half, mind you, this is a home game, right? Start the second half, it's 6 seniors. He puts 5 of them in to start the second half. I'm the only senior not starting in the second half of the game. And I remember when the second half started, the fans, and mind you, my high school is not that big. My graduating class was my senior year graduating class, like 250 people. It was a magnet school, so you had to be quote unquote smart to go to the school. So when the second half starts, everybody notices the coach put all the seniors in to start the game, all the seniors except me. And the crowd started cheering because they saw that the seniors were getting in the game. And I wasn't one of them. And I didn't get in the game. I still didn't get in that game. And I think we ended up losing the game anyway. The point being, I sat on the bench my whole senior year. And I averaged 2 points a game. So a couple of blowouts when we were winning, I would get in the game and I'd make a layup or a putback or something like that. And there was one game we had that was off-site. It was in the Christmas. Any of you who plays a sport, sometimes your team will have a Christmas tournament to play in. So we had a game 2 days after Christmas in Northeast Philadelphia. And my dad drove me to the game, and some of my teammates, they come from other parts of town. They were late getting to the game. So I actually got to start that game. That's the one game my senior year I started. And I scored like 6 points in the first quarter, and then I barely got in the rest of the game because the other players who were better than me, they got to the venue, and I got taken out of the game. So that was my highlights of playing high school basketball. Now, a couple of things you got to understand about high school. One is that one of my teammates, this guy named Darian, he was the best player on the team, and he and I were classmates during the day. So I would just like, talk shit to him, like playfully talk shit to him. Like, yeah, I'm better than you. You just get more playing time than me. I'm better. So we would practice. We would, play one-on-one against each other before practice every day. Because we had practice every day after school. As soon as school ended, we had practice. And during those games, if we were to add up the score, so if Darian sees this, y'all can make sure he sees this part. If we were to add up the score of that whole game, because we didn't even keep score, we would just play every day before practice for like 5-10 minutes before the coach came in and blew the whistle to start practice. If we add up the score, he won. All right, he definitely won the game. He scored more points than I did, so he would win the game, even though we weren't counting. But the thing that I took from that was that I would score on him every now and then. Every now and then I would do a move on him and I would score. Or every now and then he would try something on me and I would stop it. And what happened was that built a little bit of confidence in me because he wasn't just some random dude on the team. He was the best player on the team. He was all city, made the all-star games, his name in the newspaper. He was the leading scorer on the team, and he had a scholarship to go play college ball. So I figured to myself, all right, well, if I could at least score on this guy, he's the best player on the team, that means I have something here. I got some potential. I just took that little thing as an opportunity that maybe I could take this somewhere else. That was the one thing I got from playing on the high school team. So that was just a stroke of luck that he happened to be my classmate because that's how I kind of got to know him a little bit outside of in practice. If he only knew me from practice, then he wouldn't have paid me any mind because why? I wasn't playing. He was the star and I was the guy at the end of the bench. We were actually exact opposite ends of the spectrum. And here's the other thing that happened in high school. So I graduated from high school in the year 2000. After the season ended, again, if you're from Philly, you may know about this. There's a league in Philly called the Sunny Hill League. Sunny Hill is an actual person. And the Sunny Hill League is like the best league for amateur basketball players in the city of Philadelphia. So people who are from like Delaware, anywhere in southeastern Pennsylvania or New Jersey, they all come play in the Sunny Hill League when you're in like high school because this is the best league for the best players who are in the area. So any of you know players who come from the Philly area, if you name names, who are from that area, like the tri-state area, they all played in the Sunny Hill League. So Kobe Bryant played in the Sunny Hill League. Tim Thomas, DeJuan Wagner, Jameer Nelson, Rip Hamilton, all these guys who are from the southeastern area or Delaware or Jersey, all of these people, there was a guy named Eddie Griffin. They all played in the Sunny Hill Basketball League and a whole bunch of others. I'm not saying everybody's name. So my senior year basketball season ends. We lose in the playoffs in like the first round. But y'all know how the basketball season goes. The season is over in like March. So the season ends in March, but you don't graduate. Graduation is not till June. So you got April, May, June. You still got to go to school. So I see a bulletin board posting. For those of you who know what a bulletin board is like the internet, but a real life version of it. So if someone wants to make an announcement, they couldn't put it on the internet. They had to put it on a board that you had to walk past and you had to see it to know about it. I'm being tongue in cheek here, but yes, Eddie Griffin, that's correct. And so I see this bulletin board post and it says, here's a tryout for a Sunny Hill team. So I see the tryout. I decide I'm going to go to the tryout. Now, Sunny Hill is the best league for young men in the city of Philadelphia. This is the best league for anybody who is not in college. Now, I just told you, I just made the basketball team one time and I sat the bench the whole season. Why the hell would I even go to a tryout for the league that's for the best players in the city? Because again, it was the first time I'm saying it. I was dumb enough to believe that I might have a chance to make this happen. So I was dumb enough to believe in this. I go to the tryout. Now, the tryout was at this gym called Gustine Lake. If you're from Philly, you know about Gustine Lake. It's a very famous place. If you're not from Philly, don't worry. And this is the place where all the best players will play and practice, et cetera. So I walk in the gym. Let me tell you what I saw when I walked in the gym. When I walked in the gym, it was all the best players in the city of Philadelphia, all in the gym at the same time. It was like 25, almost 30 of us, all in the gym at the same time. And these are guys who, again, I got to keep saying this. If you're from my era, this is when to get news, you had to actually read the newspaper. And I was looking at all these guys, and these are all guys that you see in the newspaper all the time because they're the ones who are like the leading scorers on their team. They're on the all-city team, the all-state team. This guy got a scholarship here. He got a scholarship there. This guy averaged 30 points. This guy has 50 in the game. These are all the best players in the city, all in this gym, all going for the same team at the same time. And it was like 3 nobody guys. So it was like 24 people who were somebody and 3 nobodies. I was one of the 3 nobodies. And this is allegedly a tryout, right? So I go to this tryout. And here's the funny thing that happened. And I really want y'all to catch this. I'm telling you these pieces for a reason. As we start practicing and having these the practices will be like 3 days a week, something like that. It was 3 nobodies. After like 2 practices, the other 2 nobodies, they stopped coming. They just stopped showing up. So you got like 20 guys who are somebody from the newspaper. You got 3 nobodies, and then 2 of the nobodies stopped showing up. I was the only nobody dude who kept coming. And the coach was a guy named John Hartnett. And John Hartnett has passed away, but he was a very, very famous guy for coaching youth basketball players in Philadelphia. And I believe, he never said this, but I believe the only reason I stayed on the team is because I was the only nobody there. So why cut me? What's the point? All right, if he keeps showing up to practice, he's going to be on the team. And again, I'll tell you, long story short, I sat on the bench on this team. I ended up being on the team, but I sat on the bench the whole time. But there are a couple of things that I got from this. Number one, in practice, every now and then, I would do a nice move or make a play, or I would steal the ball from somebody, or I would do something that was like a positive result. One of the guys on this team was he was from my neighborhood. His name was Phil. And Phil was the best player in our neighborhood. He was one of those kids that I told you when I was 14, I was nothing. When he was 14, people thought he was like 18 because he was so good when he was 14. He was the best player in our neighborhood. He played like varsity as a starter for 4 years straight. He lived like the block next to me. So we kind of knew each other. He didn't know I was coming to that tryout, but when he saw me, he was like, all right, Dre, yeah, keep coming to the practices, because he had already had a scholarship to go to college. I didn't have anything. And the best player on that team was a guy named Eddie Griffin. Eddie Griffin was, if you're old enough for your basketball follower, he was the number 1 ranked player in the class of 2000 in the entire nation. He happened to be from Philly. He was number 1 ranked player in the country. He was 6'8", and he was really quiet guy, but he had this great outside shot. He was kind of like, if I had to compare him to somebody that y'all know, maybe somebody like Chris Bosh. He wasn't left-handed, but he was like that. He was tall and long, but he wasn't like a bang around guy. He was a guy who would just shoot. He would just shoot over you. He had a really good shot. He ended up being the number 1 player in the nation in the year 2000, and he went to Seton Hall for a year, and then he went to the NBA. He played in the NBA for several years. He passed away at a young age, but he was the best player in the nation. And he was on the team. And the funny thing about Eddie Griffin, I'll tell y'all this. I never heard this dude say a single word. He never spoke. Mind you, we're in practice like 3 times a week, games. Everybody's coming to the game to see him because he's the best player in the country. He just happened to be from Philly. I never heard this dude speak. He never talked. He never said anything. All the other guys talked, but he never said a word. I never heard him talk. I was on the team the whole time with him. And in the games, he would just do stuff. He would be dunking on guys. He's making threes. He's scoring 30. He's the best player, and he's all the best players in town. All these guys got scholarships. So anyway, what I took away from my experience on that team, and I got a video on YouTube talking about this. If y'all want to see that video where I explain this in more detail, it's called The Best Team I Ever Played On. This was, talent-wise, the best team I ever played on in my life was this Sunny Hill team in my senior year, even though I didn't really play. I sat on the bench. What I took from that was that I had associated with these guys. And O-Dog, I know. I didn't get into that detail, but yeah, I know. He had some mental issues. And what I took from that was the law of association, which states what? What does the law of association say? You become the average of the people you spend the most time with. And nobody told me that. But I was lucky enough. I'm thankful that I stuck around and kept playing on that team, because my experience being around those guys gave me confidence that at least I'm sitting on the bench with them. At least I'm on the same roster as these guys, even though I'm not playing. I remember I got in the game once. The games would be at Temple University at this gym called McGonigal Hall, which I think they tore down. I think they rebuilt it. But I remember I got in the game once at McGonigal Hall. And I was supposed to box somebody out on a rebound, and I didn't box out, and the guy just got the rebound and scored on me. And the coach took me right out the game immediately, and I didn't get back in the game. And that was like one of the things I remember from being in the game in that league. But the point being, it was the experience of being around them. So let's continue now. So I graduated high school in 2000. I'm going to college. Now I had my senior year. What we would do, especially at a school like what I went to, they call it a magnet school. So this is a school that's allegedly for the smartest kids with the best grades. And I was one of them, allegedly. Now, in our senior years, what we do, it was a thing that you would apply for colleges, because the school would celebrate when students got accepted to go to a college, because their whole thing was in magnet schools. I don't know if they do this these days. They probably still do it, that the school likes to boast that most of their students get accepted to college, because they like to say 100% of our students get accepted to go to college. So when you're a senior in high school or even a junior, you start getting all these letters from colleges about, hey, come to our college, et cetera. And I think they probably still do this, but you had to file an application to get into a college, and you had to pay a fee. They called it there was an application fee that you had to pay in order to apply to a college. But if the college liked you, what they would do is they would send you an application and say, well, you don't have to pay. We'll send you a fee waiver. They call it a fee waiver. So you don't have to pay. All you got to do is just apply, and you might get into the college. So I would apply to any college that sent me a fee waiver. I'd apply to it. So I got accepted to like 13 colleges my senior year of high school. And I got accepted because even though I wasn't an amazing student, my sister was an amazing student. She was like all A's, applying herself, studying, and she was like a real serious student. I was an okay student. I did good enough. I was like probably in high school, I was like a B, C student. I was like a low B average. If 100 is the highest, I was like a 80, 81 average. I was that type of student. So, but the thing is, actually not so, but when you go to a magnet school, they weight your grades on a curve because you're at a school that's supposed to be harder academically. So an 80 at a magnet school is like a 90 at a neighborhood school. So I got weighed higher because I had a B average at a school that's supposed to be harder, and I had good SAT scores. I think I was generally pretty good at test taking. So my SAT score, I don't remember what my SAT score was. So let me not get in the line to y'all what the score was. I think it was in the 1300s, but I might be messing up that number. I think it was in the 1300s, but whatever it was, I had a solid SAT score and I had solid grades at a magnet school. So I got all these application fee waivers. So any school that said you can apply to come to our school, but you don't have to pay the fee, I would just apply. I have nothing to lose. So I applied to all these colleges. I got accepted to like 13 colleges. So we had this bulletin board outside the counselor's office of every student and then all the schools they got accepted to. So it was like a competition who would get accepted to the most colleges. So I got accepted to all these colleges, but I didn't have a reason to go to any one of these schools, on top of the fact that none of them had offered me a scholarship. So this is a dilemma for my parents, because they're like, well, you don't have an athletic scholarship because you ain't do shit in basketball. They didn't say this. And at the same time, you were good academically, but it's not like you were amazing. So you don't have an academic scholarship. We got a problem here, because they were going to have to pay for me to go to college, or I would have to take out loans. But there's only so much loans a student has to get. I don't know how it is now, but back then there's only so much loan you can get individually yourself. The other loans had to be taken out by your parents, because your parents had more collateral and they had maybe credit history, et cetera. So my parents are like, all right, well, you might get some loans, but the rest got to come to us. And my parents, again, I told you what they did for a living. How are you going to pay back those loans? So they're kind of concerned, because my sister got a full scholarship to go to college because she was an amazing student. Again, as I told you, I was an okay student. So she was taken care of. So one day the counselor at my school came to me and said, this is my senior year. She said, hey, we have a recruiter coming to our school tomorrow. I want you to come to this meeting, because he asked me to bring like students who don't have a school that they've picked yet, but they're promising and they're serious young men. I want you to be one of those young men. She only invited like 10 guys to come to this meeting. Now, this recruiter was from this college called Morehouse College in Atlanta. Any of you familiar with Morehouse? So Morehouse is an HBCU, historically black colleges and universities, in Atlanta. Very famous university. Spike Lee went there. I believe Martin Luther King Jr. went there. Several other prominent black men who you've heard of went to Morehouse College. So this was, to us, the way the counselor presented it. I had heard of Morehouse, but I didn't really know much. And again, I'm from Philly. I'm not from Atlanta, but people who are from the South really know Morehouse a lot. And this is a big deal that this guy's from Morehouse, and he had all this. It was like all these bells and whistles because he's coming to our school to talk to our students. And this is what they do. They go around recruiting students. So I go to the meeting, and this guy, he gives this presentation about Morehouse. And it was two things happened in that meeting is a funny thing. The first one I'll tell you is funny, that when he's giving his presentation about the school, here's what the guy says. And obviously he's a black man. He has a suit on and all that. Very professional looking guy. He says, if you become a student at Morehouse, and he's just talking to us young men, he said, once a week, it is a rule that you have to put on a suit and tie, and you got to go the whole day wearing a suit and a tie. And he said, the reason why you got to do that is because you are going to be preparing during that day for how you're going to dress when you get into your real life outside of school. Now, I thought this guy was out of his damn mind. And it's funny that I'm saying that now, right? Now, here's why I thought that guy was out of his mind. because first of all, I told you, but my idea was when I was 16, I'm going to go play sports after college. I'm going to be a basketball player. Now, I have no idea how I'm going to do this, but this is the idea that I had. Again, I'm 18 years of age. I'm going to be a basketball player. Basketball players don't wear suits at work. We wear shorts and sneakers at work. Why would I want to wear a suit? I don't want to wear a suit all day. I don't even own a suit. This is what I'm thinking at 18. I don't even own a suit. Why am I going to want to wear a suit once a week? I don't want to do that. That seems like a waste of time. I really did not like the fact that he said that, but I was still open to hearing whatever else he had to say. So that was one thing that he said that was ironic now looking back on it. Second thing he did was that he asked each one of us, it was only about 10 of us, fill out this little information card, your name, your GPA, because at this point we knew our GPAs because you needed it to fill out these applications, and we're all filling out applications every day. Name, your GPA, and your SAT score. So you had to put that on the card, and then your contact information, your phone number, whatever. And everybody filled out the card and passed it up to the front of the room so he could see them. So he finishes the presentation, right? He goes through all the cards. He's just looking through the cards, looking at everybody's information, and all he's really looking at is that GPA and that SAT score. And he's looking at it, and there's one of my classmates, a guy named Eric. He was in the meeting. Eric was like a serious student, good student. So he says, who's Eric? The recruiter. He says, who's Eric? Eric raises his hand. He's like, Eric, I'm going to offer you right here a full scholarship to Morehouse. So when you fill out the application, just make sure you include this card. He put a little signature or something on the card. Put this card in with your application, and we're going to offer you a full scholarship to Morehouse. Like right there on the spot, offer to do the full scholarship. And everybody in the room is like, oh, shit. Then he keeps going through the cards, and he pulls up my card. He's like, who's Dre? And I'm like, me. And my grades weren't as good as Eric. So here's what he offered me. He said, Dre, I'm going to offer you a 50% scholarship to Morehouse. All right. So I'm going to offer you 50% to go to Morehouse. Somebody said the SAT is what get you in. Yeah, probably. So he offered me 50%. So I tell the council after the meeting's over, we're the only two people he offered anything to. So all the other men in the meeting, they're like all talking about this. The school was kind of buzzing for a day. Like, damn, he offered Eric and Dre scholarships to go to Morehouse. And I tell the counselor, she's all excited for me. I go home and tell my parents. And my parents are excited, not because they wanted me to go to an HBCU, but because if I get a 50% scholarship, that means 50% of the money they ain't got to worry about. They're worried about the money. They're like, we want him to go to college. And my mom's an educator, by the way. I didn't tell you that. My mom's an educator. She's all in the early education, get a degree, et cetera, et cetera. My mom stopped going to college when she had kids. My mom had kids when she was like 20 and 21. And my mom and dad the same age. She dropped out of college to raise her kids. So her thing was, I didn't finish college, but y'all going to finish college. She did eventually finish. She didn't finish college, so I was in college. But her big thing was both my kids are going to go to college and they're going to have degrees so that they're better set up to be successful in life than I was. And my dad never even thought about going to college. So it was a big deal that we needed to go. And then it was like, well, how do we figure out the money? So when I got this scholarship offer to go to Morehouse, this was a big deal to my parents because my mom's like, all right, so now you got a reason to go to a certain school and we don't have to worry about the money as much. Now, there's a problem. Some of you may know what the problem is. Any of you know how much it costs to go to Morehouse? Especially out of state. Now, I don't know what the number was back then, but I looked up the number now because I've told this story to other audiences in the past. If you look up the tuition to go to Morehouse College in Atlanta today, the last time I looked was maybe a year or two ago. Out of state student, the tuition is $48,000 a year. Out of state to go to Morehouse. And see, people talk about HBCUs like they don't have funding, they don't have money, and generally they don't compared to PWIs, also known as predominantly white institutions, which I'll get to in a second. $48,000 a year to go to Morehouse out of state, out of pocket, $48,000. So my mom calls me into my parents' bedroom at one point, and she says, hey, it was cheaper back in the day. Well, every school was cheaper back in the day, but whatever it was still too much. My mom says, hey, we've been running the numbers on Morehouse. And the problem is, son, that you are not going to be able to get enough loans to pay the tuition. You can get some loans, but you're not going to get enough. We, talking about my mom and my dad, we would have to take out loans to pay for you to go to Morehouse. And if we do that, and this is the exact phrase my mom used, she said, we will be in debt for the rest of our lives. You can't go to Morehouse. That's what she said. She said, we'll be in debt for the rest of our lives if you go to Morehouse because the scholarship won't cover everything. And you are not going to get the loans to put it in your name. It's going to be in our names, and we're going to be in debt forever paying off loans for you to go to college. So this ain't going to work. Now, I didn't argue with it because, again, I only cared about going to Morehouse because he offered me a scholarship. I didn't have a real reason to go to any school. So she said, well, look, because you applied to all these colleges, you did get accepted to Penn State. You got accepted to Penn State University. And I did get accepted to Penn State. I didn't care about Penn State. Mind you, I'm from Philadelphia. Well, so Penn State is Philly is in the state of Pennsylvania. I just filled it out because they offered me a fee waiver. I applied for free. She said, how about you just go to Penn State? And Penn State has a bunch of campuses in the state of Pennsylvania. They got like 23 campuses. So one of the campuses is right outside of Philadelphia, like 20 minutes from my house, like where I grew up. She said, you can go to Penn State Abington. That's the campus near home. Go there for a year or two. And then after 2 years, then you can transfer to the main campus of Penn State. You can graduate from Penn State. And she said, what do you think of that? Now, of course, I didn't think anything of it. I said, sure, why not? I don't have any say in this process because, again, I didn't have a real reason to go to any school. I didn't have anybody offer me a scholarship, athletic or academic, and I wasn't the one who was going to be paying for it. So I have no leverage in this conversation. I said, all right, fine. I guess I'm going to Penn State. So I ended up going to Penn State. I go to Penn State Abington my freshman year, and the only thing I cared about, whatever school I go to, I was on their website trying to find out what's the basketball team looking like. Because mind you, remember this idea. I'm going to be a basketball player. All right. I still got this idea. So I'm 18 years old, freshman in college. I'm at Penn State Abington. Penn State Abington has no on-campus housing. So this is what they call a commuter campus. And if you go to a commuter campus, so a commuter campus is when you live at home, wherever you live, and you go to campus every day and you go back home. There's no dorms, there's no off-campus housing, no apartments. So all the stuff that y'all think of when you think of, or any of you who went to college, you know what college is partying, is talking to the guys and the girls, is drinking. It's all the stuff that happens outside of the classroom. You don't really have that at a commuter campus because you can't hang out. You got to go home. You got to get on the bus and go home, or get in your car and go back home at the end of the day because there's nowhere to sleep. So this is where I went my freshman year. And I didn't really like the experience of Penn State Abington because of what I just told you. Abington's a very small campus. Beautiful town, beautiful campus, but a small campus. Only had like 4 buildings at the time. Good. Only thing I liked about it was that it had a basketball team. I get on the basketball team. Now, Penn State Abington just happened to be, I didn't do this by design, happened to be a Division III college. So those of you who are not sports fans, if you follow college sports, like college football is happening right now, those guys you see on TV, that's Division I. Those are the players who, if anybody from college goes and plays in the NFL, is those guys you see on TV. That's Division I. Basketball is the same way. Then you got Division II, which is people are a little bit lesser tier. Most of them don't go pro, even though many try. Then you got Division III. These are guys down in the basement. Most of these guys are not ambitious about sports. They only play because it's available at the college that they went to. But most of them are already knowing, I'm just going to play sports here, and then when this is over, it's over. They have no ambition about sports. And this applies in every sport. So Division I basketball, for example, is March Madness. NCAA tournament, that's Division I. I was Division III. Penn State Abington at the time was Division III. And at the time, it was what they called provisional Division III, meaning they were about to be D3, but they were not all the way there. So it was like a probationary period, which meant what that meant for us was that you could only play 2 years of sports at this school. So even if you went to the school for 4 years, you could only play sports for 2 years. So now I'm on the clock. I'm at the school. I only get 2 years to play sports, but college is 4 years. So I'm like, not only do I need to do something on the basketball court here, but I also got to figure out where can I go after 2 years, because that's the only way I could play 4 years of sports. And mind you, I still have this idea, this pipe dream. I'm going to be a professional athlete. How can I do that if I only play 2 years of sports? I need to play 4 years of sports. I need to get better. It's not like I was Kobe Bryant and I'm good enough to go to the NBA. I need to get better. I need 4 years of playing because, again, I already told you, I stopped playing when I was 14. I need the experience. I need all of it. So Penn State Abington, good thing is I made the basketball team as a freshman. It wasn't a lot of ambitious basketball players on campus, as I already explained to you. Played on the team, wasn't crazy, but I did something. I had some highlights. I had some good games, et cetera, et cetera. It was inconsistent, but it was good experience. I needed that. So now here's the next inflection point. After my freshman year of college, now I didn't tell you all this, but I'll tell you this. I started working, like having jobs when I was like 15 years of age. Again, you're from the era that I'm from, and you grew up the way that I grew up. My parents and many parents in my neighborhood, like all the kids that I knew, it was the same way. In the state of Pennsylvania at the time, the legal working age was 15 years of age. So as soon as you became 15, you had to go to the Social Security office and you got these things they call working papers. So working papers just meant is a little card that you get that says basically this person is legal to be hired for an official job. So I started going applying for jobs. I started working when I was 15 years of age, and I had jobs all the way through high school. My senior year of high school, I was working at McDonald's. My freshman year of college, I was at McDonald's, and I worked at a store called Hat World. And these days, a store called Lids is pretty much taking over, but similar type of store. And I worked at a movie theater. I worked at CVS. I always had jobs. So My freshman year of college, after the season ended and after the semester ended, I was not taking summer classes, but I'm a student at Penn State Abington. They had a beautiful gym, still one of my favorite gyms to this day, and I'm only 20 minutes away. And this is the first time in my life I had access to an indoor gym on a daily basis. Before that, I never had access to an indoor gym. All my basketball up to that point had been outside on the asphalt. And if it was raining or cold, I just couldn't play. So this is the first time I had access to an indoor gym. So I'm like, I'm taking advantage of this. So at that time, that summer, I had a job at CVS, the convenience store. So I worked at CVS that summer in this town called Flower Town. And I would have to work. Usually I worked the night shift. So I would have to be to work at like 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, something like that. So I would wake up in the morning, eat breakfast, drive to the Abington campus, 20 minutes away, use the gym to work on my game. And then I would come home, shower, change clothes. Sometimes I didn't even shower, to keep it real. And then I would go to work and work at CVS till 10, 11 o'clock at night. That was my schedule in the summertime, that summer. And one day I drove to the Abington campus. I had not eaten breakfast at home. So I walk across the campus to the cafeteria. Mind you, Abington only got like 4 buildings, small campus, beautiful, but small. I walk into the cafeteria to get some food. There's a bunch of people sitting in an lobby talking. I don't know these people. I walk past them. I walk out with my food, and this random dude approaches me and says, "Hey, man, what position do you play?" And I'm looking at him kind of crazy because, again, I live in Miami, Florida, but I'm from Philadelphia. So any of you who's from the kind of place that I'm from, you don't approach people and just strike up conversation. That's not a thing. All right. Where I live now and how I live now, yes, it's fine to say hello to people in the elevator and all that. But where I come from, you didn't do that. You didn't just talk to somebody you didn't know. So I'm kind of looking at him crazy, like, what do you mean? What position I play? Who are you? Why are you talking to me? Like that's the kind of energy that I had. What I said to him was, "How do you know I play?" He said, "Well, I'm just asking." So I answer his question. I tell him I play guard. Now, mind you, he's asking me about what position I play. We're not in the basketball gym. We're in the cafeteria. But I have on basketball gear because I got on my shorts and I got my sneakers with me because I'm about to go to the gym. So I guess I look like I play basketball, but he has never even seen me play. So we start talking, et cetera, et cetera. He starts asking me about my major. He's an older guy. He's like my dad's age. But again, Penn State Abington is in Abington. Right? It ain't that many black people on this campus, period. Like students, teachers, it ain't that many black people. He's black, I'm black. I know I don't know this dude. I know I've never seen him before because if he was around, I would have seen him because it ain't that many black people. So anyway, we had this conversation. He ends up handing me a business card. Turns out this guy works at a different campus of Penn State. He works at a campus called Penn State Altoona. Now, the Altoona campus is the only other campus in Penn State's system that is a full 4-year athletic school. It was Division III, but it was 4 years. Mind you, Abington is only 2 years. Altoona is 4 years. So this is basically a step up for me if I can go play for him. All of this is going through my mind as soon as I see his business card. Turns out he's a basketball coach and he's an academic, advisor or recruiter. He's a recruiter for the campus and he's the basketball coach. He has 2 jobs at Penn State Altoona. He was basically recruiting me right there on the spot. Now, here's the funny thing. He didn't know who I was. This dude had no idea who I was. So the question you should be asking is, why the hell is he approaching you and trying to recruit you if he doesn't know who you are? Well, here's what he later told me. He said he knew what he needed for his basketball team the upcoming season. Because mind you, this is the summer in between my freshman and sophomore year. So he said the team that I had coming up the next year, I knew what I needed for the team that year. And you looked like you might be that type of player. He didn't even know if I could play. I might have been the biggest bum on campus. He didn't know if I could play at all. But he said, you look like you might be able to play. So that's why I approached you. And then he said, after I approached you and got your information, then I went and did my due diligence and found out who you were. That's when he called my coach and talked to him and found out about me. And it was just luckily he found out, this kid can actually play. So it was like a lucky break. Now, I'm telling you that to tell you this. The reason, because this inflection point was when I ended up transferring to Penn State Altoona, and I played my last 3 years of college. My last 3 years of college period was at Penn State Altoona. And a bunch of my best friends to this day, people I'm still cool with to this day, and a lot of things that led to everything that happened next, was I'm going to tell you in a minute. All of this occurred because I was at Penn State Altoona. And the only reason I got to Penn State Altoona was someone asked, was it luck? A little bit, you could call it luck, but what is luck? What do they say about luck? Luck is when preparation and opportunity meet. So the opportunity was this guy randomly being on campus one random day in the cafeteria and running into me. That was the opportunity. Now, he wasn't even there for basketball. He was there doing his other business, his other job. He just happened to see me and said, let me holler at this kid. The preparation was what? I just told you. Preparation was I decided on my own volition, I'm going to come up to campus every day and work on my game. Had I not decided to come up to campus every day and work on my game, I never would have ran into that dude, and none of the other things would have happened. So the preparation was me being disciplined and doing the work. The opportunity was him randomly being there, running into me, and decided, let me take a chance. So yes, you can call it fate, whatever you want to call it. Yes, it was positioning myself for luck to happen. So luck is created. Luck is not just some random happenstance things that happens, because there are a bunch of random things that happen to all of us in life. But if we're not prepared to take advantage of them, then we don't consider it luck because we don't even notice that it happened. So this is how I ended up at Penn State Altoona. So let's go to Penn State Altoona. I played my sophomore year for this guy who recruited me. After my sophomore year, this guy gets fired. Same coach who recruited me. Luckily, ran into him. So I got lucky after my freshman year running into this dude. Now, my sophomore year, 1 year later, the same guy who recruited me gets fired from the job. So now you want to talk about luck? All right, here's some more luck. He gets fired. This is the bad luck. Now, any of you know anything about college sports, or you know anything about corporate changeovers at the top of the C-suite? Whenever the person in charge gets replaced and a new person comes in, a lot of times the people from the previous regime don't make it into the new regime. Why? Not because they're not good at their jobs, but because the new leader, the new CEO, the new coach wants to bring in some of their own people, and that means they got to replace some of the old people. New coach comes in. He starts cleaning house. We had like 9 returning players from my sophomore year team, the old coach. Only 3 of us make it to the new team. I actually made the new team. The new team with the new coach, I actually did make the team with this new guy, but I didn't last the whole season. So it was 3 of us who made the team. All right, we had a senior, I was a junior, and there was a sophomore. 3 of us made it. The senior, he gets run off the team like the first game of the season. He runs the senior off the team. He don't want the senior on the team. And then I get ran off the team like 8 games into the season. So I'm not on the team anymore. And then the sophomore, he quits on his own like 3 games after that. So by the end of that junior season, all the players from the previous team were all off the team now. And long story short, when it comes to my college career, I did not play like the rest of my junior year. And then all of my senior year, I wasn't even on the basketball team at all. I was not on the basketball team. I was completely healthy. I was academically eligible. I didn't have grade issues or any of that GPA issues. I just was not on the basketball team because this new coach wanted who he wanted. But I kept working on my game. Same thing I did in Abington. Kept working on my game, kept getting better, et cetera, et cetera. And I still had this pipe dream. I'm going to be a professional basketball player. So now I'm a senior. I'm about to graduate. Now, one of my teammates, he was from North Carolina, and he happened to know some people who played overseas, because he and I were the only 2 guys in the school, because we knew each other, even though we didn't get to play that much together, because he came in like at the same time that I left the basketball team. We would play pickup together and all that stuff. And we were the only 2 guys on the whole campus who would ever come to the gym and just practice by ourselves. In basketball, they call that what I call work on your game. Like, the reason work on your game just means coming to the gym to practice on your own volition, not because the coach told you to or somebody's making you do it, but you just want to. You just come to the gym by yourself to practice. He and I were the only 2 people who would ever do that. So he and I got cool on that level. We got cool on many levels, but that's how we initially connected, because he would work on his game and work on my game. So we would talk about where you want to go after this. He wanted to play overseas. I wanted to play overseas, because we knew we probably weren't going to get drafted by the New York Knicks or the Lakers based on where we came from, Division III college. So he happened to know some people who played overseas. So he knew a little bit about the overseas game. I knew nothing about the overseas world. I didn't know anything at all, but he knew about it. So he said, Dre, here's what you got to do. All right, they have these events called exposure camps. Any of you heard of these? So an exposure camp is, if you don't know about exposure camp, it's like a job fair. All you know about a job fair, right? That's like when a bunch of people who don't have a job go to one place, and then a bunch of recruiters who are looking for employees, they come, and everybody comes there together. The employers are looking for workers, and the workers are looking for jobs. So it's a perfect connection. It's like that. Exposure camp is like a job fair for athletes. You go to this event, and there's a bunch of people like you who think they're good enough to play. They all show up, and then a bunch of people who are looking for players, they show up. Now, exposure camps at that time mostly were just for amateur to pro level, but nowadays they have them for every level. So you could be in high school trying to go to college, they have an exposure camp for you. So they have them for every level now, but back then it was mostly for players trying to play pro. So I go to the exposure camp. You had to pay for this too, mind you. It's not free. Thank you for that lightning bolt, Renata. So I go to the exposure camp. It was $250 in cash. So let me back up and give you a little bit of context here. Now I'm graduated from college. This is 2004. I graduated. Now my first job out of college was working at Foot Locker. I was an assistant manager at Foot Locker. And the reason I got hired as an assistant manager is because I had a college degree. What the hell having a college degree has to do with being an assistant manager at Foot Locker? Absolutely nothing, but that's how it worked out. So thank you, Penn State, for the degree because you got me a job as an assistant manager. I worked at Foot Locker as assistant manager for 6 months. This is after graduation. That was from like August until maybe April. Then I quit Foot Locker and I get a job at a gym called Bally Total Fitness. Y'all remember Bally Total Fitness? They're out of business now. But I was a gym membership salesperson at Bally Total Fitness for another 6 months, from April, like May, June, July, like that. The exposure camp was in the summer of 2005. So I went to this camp in like June or July 2005. Mind you, I graduated 2004. So my first year out of college, I did not play sports. I was not, well, I played, I went to the gym at an LA Fitness membership, but I was not playing pro. So this was no smooth ride. I'm just trying to get on and looking for my opportunity. And I knew that these exposure camps cost money. I didn't have money. Mind you, I'm a college student. This is before name, image, and likeness. So I didn't make any money from playing college. And now I'm working at Foot Locker, still living in my parents' house. 22 years of age. I turned 23 in 2005. I'm still living in my parents' house. And I'm working at Foot Locker. Now I'm working at Bally Total Fitness, making a few $100s a week. That was the situation. So I save up enough money to go to this exposure camp. Mind you, I heard of this camp in January. The camp wasn't until July. I had to strategize to make sure I had enough money to pay for it. The camp was only $250. Only $250. I had to strategize to have that money. All right, so I strategized to have the money to go to this exposure camp. I had to go to my boss at Bally Total Fitness and negotiate with this guy to get the weekend off, because in retail, you never get the weekend off. So I negotiated with him to get the weekend off. Camp was in Orlando. I live in Philly. So we rent a car, me and two of my college teammates who had similar ambition. We rent a car in Philly and drive from Philly to Orlando. For those of you who don't know the geography, that's like 17 hours, 19 hours, depending on traffic. We get the car on Friday. We drive from like 2 in the afternoon on Friday till 9 in the morning on Saturday without stopping. And the camp started at 9 a.m. on Saturday. Now, at 23 years of age, I could do that. Probably couldn't do that now, but I could do it then. Exposure camp's only 2 days. I played pretty well at this exposure camp. And at the exposure camp, you get two things. Number one, well, actually three things. Number one, you get seen by a bunch of decision makers, people who can actually help you start a career. So this is not like you're posting content on the internet and random people are watching you. Literal Skills say you turned 11 in 2005, or I turned 23 that year. So I go to the exposure camp and I got seen by some people who have some say. That's one thing that happened, but I didn't sign a contract. Second thing is you get a scouting report. Those people who know stuff, they write a scouting report about you, basically talking about your strengths and weaknesses, and they put it up on the website. So this is important because I had some third-party credibilities. I played pretty well at this camp. I could show you. I still got the picture of the scouting report. And that scouting report mattered because now I finally had somebody other than myself saying, hey, this guy can play and he actually might be pro material. All right, that was important because that was the first time anybody had said that about me, because it's the first exposure camp I went to. It was very important that I had that scouting report. Third thing is you get the footage of everything that you did at the camp. Mind you, camp's only 2 days. So you play 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. And the footage from this scouting report, from this event was very important because now I had proof. Yes, the scouting report, somebody saying I'm good is one thing, but in sports, you need proof. And hard proof means we got to see it. Let me see that you can play. You got to show me. So this is the footage. So I take this footage. I go back home. I had to go back home to Philly. I didn't get signed to a contract on the spot. We drive back to Philadelphia from Orlando. I had to be back at work on Monday. Mind you, I negotiated with my boss to get Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. We left Philly on Friday in a car and drove to Orlando. We left Orlando on Sunday in a car and drove back to Philly. I had to be at work Monday morning. All right, so I didn't even get to sleep. All right, I had to be back at work Monday morning. Now I got the scouting report and I got the footage. Now what do I do? Because I still don't have a contract. I got footage and I got people saying I'm good. Now here's what I had to do. I appreciate it. Literal skill. Here's what I had to do. I needed to find a basketball agent. And what's an agent in basketball? For those of you who don't know the world, an agent is basically the go-between between the jobs and the people. So if you want a job, you get an agent, and the agent is like the middleman. So an agent, I knew I was going to play overseas. I'm from Philadelphia, went to school at Penn State. I barely been out of the state, let alone out of the country at this point in my life. I'm going to go back in that story in a minute and tell you somewhere that I did go. But anyway, if I'm going to play overseas in Italy or France or something like that, I don't know anybody in those places, but agents know people. So if I can get an agent to know me and they like me, then they will talk me up and help me get on. So this is my idea. This is my theory. Again, I don't know if this is going to work. This is just my theory. So here's what I do. I go on Google. This is 2005. Google did exist. It wasn't anything like it is now, but it did exist. And I looked up basketball agents. I just typed in basketball agents. Any basketball agent who had a email address, I sent them an email and said, here's who I am. Here's what I got. I sent them a link to my scouting report. I said I have footage of myself. I emailed them. I emailed a bunch of agents. Any agent who had a phone number, I called them. Now, do y'all understand cold calls? Any of you never had a job where you had to do cold calls? I suggest you get one. And if you have a kid and you want them to be a good salesperson, make them get a job where they got a cold approach and cold sell people, whether that's approaching them on the street, whether it's working at the mall, you walk up to people, try to sell them some lotion, or they got to get on the phone or knock on doors. All right. I had a job doing that already because I was working at Bally Total Fitness. And when you sell gym memberships, a lot of what you're doing is just randomly calling people in the neighborhood and trying to get them to come to the gym. So I already knew how to cold call. I wasn't afraid of cold calling. So I started cold calling basketball agents. Mind you, this is 2005. I called 60 basketball agents. None of these people knew me and nobody was calling me. I was calling them. And it's very important that y'all understand this. So when I talk about things like discipline, you already got that part. I've explained that to you already. When I talk about mental toughness, hopefully y'all are getting that. Many times things were not working, but I kept trying. When I talk about personal initiative, this is this part right here. I already told you a bunch of times I took initiative. Going to the gym in Abington when nobody was telling me to go to the gym. Going to this exposure camp and negotiating with my boss to get the weekend off to get the chance. Now I'm trying to still get on. I'm not on yet. I'm 23. I'm not on yet. Nobody has signed me. Nobody knows me. I need an agent. I cold called 60 basketball agents, 60 agents. Out of the 60 who I called, I got in touch with about 20. 20 either answered the phone or they called me back. and I told them who I was, what I had, etc. I had a little pitch that I was going to say every time I got on the phone. And they said, all right, send me your footage. Let me see what you got. 20 of them said, let me see what you got. Now, many of you are probably assuming that I sent them a link to my video. Well, here's the problem. There were no links to videos in 2005. No such thing as sending a link to a video in 2005. So here's what I had. That footage, remember I told you I went to exposure camp and they gave you footage? That footage was on this thing called a VHS tape. All right. Any of you put VHS in the comments if you know what a VHS tape even is. All right. Some of you don't even know what that is. All right. If you know what a VHS tape is, put VHS in the comments. So my footage from that exposure camp, I see you, boss man, Shayna. Okay, tweet. Okay, some of you know what it is. So the VHS tape, folks. I had a VHS footage. Those games from the exposure camp was on that. Now at home, I had this thing called a double-decker VCR, not VHR, VCR. You were born in 05, you know what it is? All right, that's what's up. Shout out to people who know what it is. You're born after 2000. So I had a double-decker VCR at home. So a VCR is the machine you needed to play a VHS tape. And double-decker meant you could have two tapes in there at the same time. You could make copies of a tape. So I went to this drugstore called Eckerd. I don't know if Eckerd even exists anymore, but I went to Eckerd. It was one then. And I bought a 10-pack of blank VHS tapes. So I would buy 10 at a time. And I took the master copy of my footage from that camp and I would make copies of all the footage. And then I would mail the copies out to the agents who were asking for the tape. And I had to mail these out in bubble mailers. I had to literally go to the post office and pay for the postage to mail these tapes out to all these agents. I'm mailing agents in Lebanon, California, and New York. Any agent that said, let me see what you got, I mailed them the bubble mailer VHS copy tape of my footage from playing in this exposure camp. So I sent this to 20 people, right? It's a time machine. Yeah, it is. It's funny, like telling this story now. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it was. So I mailed this footage out to 20 people, right? Out of 20 I mailed it to, how many of you think ended up being interested? I mailed it to 20. How many of you think were interested? Appreciate it, CJ. So my question is, Eckerd was bought by CVS. Okay, that makes sense. All right, now it makes sense. I didn't know what happened to Eckerd, but yeah, they got bought by CVS. So how many people you think responded when I sent my tape to 20 people? I called 60. I talked to 20. I sent tapes to 20. How many do you think I got back in touch with when I tried to follow up? Because I followed up. Mind you, I knew how to sell. I was working at Bally Total Fitness. I knew how to sell. I knew how to follow up. I knew how to initiate. I knew how to do all that stuff. One agent, only one. So I see some of you said 3, 2. CJ, you said 5. You're an optimistic guy, CJ. 5 out of 20. That's a very high return rate. But only one. One agent answered my call when I called him back. And he said, I'll represent you. And that's how I got my first agent. One guy called me back and said, I will represent you. Now, this guy was a lawyer, actually, black guy. He was a lawyer, and he was looking to get into the basketball world. He wasn't his business wasn't basketball. His business was law. But he said, I'm going to do this agent thing. I guess he saw some opportunity. I don't know why he was doing it. It didn't matter to me. He was going to represent me. Cool. He helped me get my first job. So I got my first job. Mind you, I'm still working at Bally Total Fitness after I signed with my agent. So any of you who thinks this is some glorious thing, when you sign with an agent, the only thing that happens is now you got somebody trying to help you get signed. It's not like you sign with an agent and you get a bag of money. When you sign with an agent, that just means that somebody other than you is now trying to help you get a job. You still are jobless. So signing with an agent is not a job. It just means somebody's helping you. So now he goes to work trying to help me get a job because he knows people overseas. I don't know anybody overseas. I'm still working at Bally Total Fitness. I remember this. I was working at the location in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, which is right outside of Philly. That building is still there, but it's not Bally anymore. I don't know what it is. But I remember I'll be at work and I would text him like once a week. So when you have an agent in sports and you're waiting to get a call, it's like once a week you'll hear from your agent like, yeah, I'm still working, just stay in shape, keep working out, no, stay positive. It's not like every minute they're giving you updates, and it's not like the stock market where things are just changing minute by minute. It's not like that. It's like every week you'll hear from your agent, keep working out, stay in shape. It's the same message over and over again until finally something pops. So I signed with my agent in like July, and maybe about 4 weeks later, he hits me and says, hey, I got somebody who's interested. So he starts telling me like, hey, there's a team in Lithuania who's interested in you. I'm negotiating with them right now. He starts telling me a little bit of the idea of what they're thinking about. He says, yeah, I'm trying to get them to come up on a number, but sit tight. No, I'm gonna let you know what's going on. And over the course of maybe like 3 or 4 days, he keeps giving me updates. Finally, he gets the deal done and he says, it's done. So you're gonna go play in Lithuania. And mind you, he gives me this message on like a Friday. And he's like, the team is like, we need you on the plane on Monday. Now, mind you, 23 years of age, living in my parents' house, working at Bally Total Fitness, barely making, might be making $1,000 a month with the commission from the sales. And it's Friday. And now he's like, on Monday, you need to be on a plane to go to Lithuania. I've never been outside of the country. And now you're going to go play professional basketball. And that's what I ended up doing. That's how I got started playing basketball overseas. That's how I got started. All of that story is how I got my first job playing overseas. Now, if I told you all these details, we'd be here for 5 hours, but let's continue. So this is 2005. Now that footage, that VHS tape footage, so let's shift in the story. I knew that this VHS tape, those of you who had them back in the days, you know that if you lose it, then you lost all your footage. Or if you leave it in the sun or it gets wet or it breaks, and you lose all your footage. So I wanted this footage to be somewhere that I could kind of safe keep it. Now, I am a closet internet geek. I'm not a tech geek, but I'm an internet geek. I was always into the internet ever since I got on computers. Y'all know back in the days when you were in school, there would be the computer lab. There'd be one room with a bunch of computers and the screen was green. All right, that's the era that I come from. And I've always been a computer geek since then. And I've always paid attention to the internet. And CJ said, what do my parents think about me leaving home for the first time? Good question, CJ. I think they were happy that I was not in the house anymore, using up all the electricity and eating all the food. I think they were happy about that, honestly. No joke. I think that's what they're really happy about. And yeah, dial-up internet. Back when you had the AOL CDs, you got the free 100 hours of free internet from the AOL. I remember that. And you had to unplug the phone line and plug in the computer. And then when you were done with the computer, you had to plug the phone line back in so your phone could work. Yes, that is right. Y'all remember more than me. Oregon Trail. I remember Oregon Trail. If you remember Oregon Trail, you got to be real old school. So that was like early 90s. Oregon Trail with the green screen computers. Yes, I remember Oregon Trail. And the modems. Yes, I forgot about the modems. Yes, that was the thing too. You had to buy a modem and all that stuff. So yes, those days. Yeah, shout out to Oregon Trail. So anyway, so all right, answering y'all questions. I threw me off my story. So I needed a place to safe keep this footage because the footage could get lost. So there was a place, because I told you I always worked jobs, right, as a kid. So whenever I would take the bus out to the mall, because I used to work at a mall outside of Philly called Plymouth Meeting Mall, and it was like an hour-long bus you had to take to get out there and an hour-long back. And I noticed there was an audio-visual store. I always noticed it. It was just there because you're looking out the window. Mind you, again, I grew up in the 90s, folks. This is before you had a phone to look at while you're on a bus. If you're on a bus for an hour, ain't no phone to look at. You're just looking around. You're looking at people and you're looking out the window. All right, you're not looking at a phone. You either got a magazine with you, or you got the newspaper, or you're talking to somebody, or you're just looking out the window because there ain't nothing else to do. You can't look at your phone. So I would always be looking out the window and I just noticed these stores. So for whatever reason, I got this VHS tape and I remember this audio visual store. I went over there. Yeah, Walkman CD player. Shout out to the Walkmans and the Discman. Remember when the Discman came out? That was like a step up when you had the CD. So I go to the audio visual store and I say, hey, I got a VHS tape. Can you put this into some type of digital format? And why did I care? I cared because at this time, this is like late 05, early 06. I heard that there was this website that said they claimed you could put footage on their website and you could put up as much as you want for free. This website was called youtube.com. This was the website that claimed you could put footage on their website as much as you want, but I needed it in a digital format so I could upload the footage because uploading was a new thing. Now you can upload footage to this website, but you got to have a digital format. So I took the VHS tape to the audio visual store. They put it on a CD. Now this is not a music CD. It's called a data CD. So there are CDs with just information on it. So you put the data CD in the computer and now it's a digital format and you can upload it to this website. And I took that footage from the VHS tape and I uploaded it to YouTube. That's how I got on the internet. That's how I started building what became my brand, was that VHS tape footage on YouTube in 2005, 2006. That's where it started. So here's what happens. So I appreciate it. I got plenty of books from Renata, but I may write a book just telling this whole story. I don't have a book just telling this story, but I will. Thank you for offering that. So continuing the story. Footage is on YouTube. I'm playing basketball. I'm in Lithuania. I come back from Lithuania. I got a job temporarily working overnight at a supermarket. This was probably the lowest point of my adult life, was that point. So I'm 23, back from Lithuania. It's not like I made $1 billion and I can just live off that. I'm still back in my parents' house. I need to get a job. I get a job working overnight at a supermarket. Mine's just a college graduate with a degree in business. I got a degree from Penn State in business with a focus in management and marketing. I got a business degree. I just played basketball overseas and I'm working overnight at a supermarket stocking the shelves. This is real life. This is what I was doing. And this was probably the lowest point in my adult life from graduation to today. Still was, if I had to take any part where I hated it the most, it was this part right here. Still living in my parents' house and working overnight shifts is depressing because you don't have anybody to talk to. You could talk to other people who work there. But I remember when I was working there, the staff they hired me again. They hired me as a manager. They hired me as a manager because I had a college degree. Again, what the hell that has to do with anything, I don't know. But they hired me in a management position. The thing was, same thing they did at Foot Locker, was they was like, yes, you technically are a manager, but you have to do the regular work for a few weeks so that you know what the job is. Then you'll start managing everybody else. So I had to do the regular work for a few weeks. You know what the regular work is when you work overnight at a supermarket? Y'all know what it is? And you know? Yes, those videos are still on YouTube. Every video I ever put on YouTube is still there. I never took anything off. So when you work overnight in a supermarket, the job is restocking the shelves. That's all you're doing. So you just pull boxes out from the back that come off the truck. So anytime you see those big trucks going into a supermarket, all right, that stuff does not get on the shelf by itself. Like there's people who have to open up the box and put all that shit on the shelf. That's what you do for 8 straight hours. That's what I did. 8 straight hours is putting shit on the shelf. Now I'll tell you what happened because I found myself being smart. Now let me remind you all again. This is before smartphones. Ain't no podcasts. Ain't no audiobooks. The first night that I worked there, it was nobody to talk to. You're just sitting there by yourself, putting shit on the shelf for 8 hours. Nothing to do. Second night, I got smart. I bought my iPod. Not iPad, iPod. Y'all remember iPods? iPod was just music. It was 1,000, 10,000 songs in your pocket, like Steve Jobs famously said. So I bring my iPod the second night. So I'm like, all right, if I'm going to be here for 8 hours doing nothing or with nobody to talk to, at least let me have some music. So I bring my iPod the second night. Problem is the iPod dies after like 5 hours. Like, iPods did not have the kind of battery life that these things have, these smartphones have. So I bring my iPod and it dies after like 5 hours. So the last 3 hours, again, I have nothing to do, nobody to talk to. Unfortunately, there was no solution to this problem. And I only had like 4 hours of listening. The good news is, here's the good news. My trusty agent called me after about a week working at that grocery store and said, I got another gig for you. So I got the hell out of that grocery store. Luckily for me, this low point that I'm talking only lasted about a week. I didn't even last the whole pay period because by the time, because you know, when you get a new job, you miss the first pay period and then your check doesn't come till like 2 weeks after. So by the time my check came, my check was like less than $100 because the number of hours that I worked. By the time I got my first check, I had already quit the job. So good for me. Thank God for my agent for getting me my next job. My next job was going playing in some traveling team in the United States. And I'll tell you about this. This team doesn't exist anymore. But any of you familiar with the Harlem Globetrotters? You heard on Harlem Globetrotters? I'm not talking about them. But all of y'all know what they are. They're like a team that is kind of like show basketball. It's basketball, but it's kind of a show, and it's for the kids and it's for the family. Harlem Globetrotters. So the team that I played for was like the Walmart version of the Harlem Globetrotters. It wasn't the Globetrotters. We did a similar thing, but we were like the low budget Harlem Globetrotters. That's the next team that I played for. And they're in the United States. They were based out in Colorado. So on this team, you're traveling around. Yeah, you've been to the Globetrotters game. You probably didn't come to the game the team I was on. So we're traveling around, and this is in the Midwestern United States. So the team's based in Colorado. So when I tell you I've been to every state in America, one of the reasons is because of this team. So we played in Wyoming. We were in North Dakota, South Dakota, Colorado, everywhere in Texas. All those states. I got to look at the map. Let me look at the map so I can even tell y'all what states we were in, because we were in so many different places. I can't remember all the places we were at when I was playing for this team. So the team's based in Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, Dallas, and it was like surreal to me because I'm a city guy. I'm an East Coast guy. I come from Philadelphia. I live in Miami, and I'm a city guy. I'm a coastal guy. And being in these places was like surreal, just seeing that people actually live in these places, like these small towns. And mind you, we were playing in these small towns because if you play in a big city, like if a traveling team comes to New York, nobody's going to go see them because who wants to see y'all? We can go see the New York Knicks. So we ain't got to watch y'all. So we would go to these small towns that are so far away from a big city that we're like the biggest show in town. So we're in these little ass towns with these people. I'm like, people actually live in these places. Like it's crazy. It was crazy to me seeing it then. But I mean, everywhere in the middle of the United States, all the flyover states, I've been to them. One of the reasons is because I was on this team. So anyway, fast forward in the story. So that takes us about 2005, 2006. 2006, I go play basketball in Mexico. Now, mind you, all this time I'm putting videos on YouTube like sporadically. So like 06 is when I realized, oh, like people actually like watching me practice on the internet. I don't know why anybody wants to watch me practice. Mind you, nobody knows me. I'm not known. I have no name. I have no brand. I'm playing overseas, but how many of you know? How many of you can name 3 people who play basketball overseas right now? Most of you don't know anybody who plays overseas. So even though you're playing, nobody knows you. It's not like you're known. Nobody's Googling you. So I'm playing overseas, and I have these videos that I would randomly put on YouTube every now and then. So like 2006, 2007, 2008, and I'm playing in different places. So I go to Mexico, playing basketball, come back, get another job because again, it was a slow period for the next job. End up playing in Montenegro. And I got to tell you a story about Montenegro. So 2007, I'm putting videos up on YouTube randomly every now and then, every 6 weeks, whenever I feel like it. And I'm building a little bit of an audience. But again, who cares? Who cares if you got an audience on YouTube in 2007? It's not like you're making money from it. There's no brand deals. We're not calling people influencers. None of this exists. If you're putting videos on YouTube, you're doing it just for fun. So 2007, it had been like several months. I had not signed a contract to play overseas. I decided, now back then, this is when social media was MySpace. How many of you had a MySpace page back in the day? Shout out to the people who had MySpace. So I had a MySpace page. And on MySpace, you could change your screen name to whatever you want. So I changed my screen name on MySpace and said, I'm not changing this name until I sign a contract. That's what I put on my MySpace. My MySpace screen name was not changing this until I sign a contract. And I did that in like the summer of 07, because at that time I didn't have a contract and I'm trying to get one. And the season starts in like September. September goes by, no contract. October, November, December. Somebody said, what's a MySpace? Can somebody explain MySpace? Can somebody explain MySpace to G. Raya saying? There's a bunch of y'all don't know what MySpace is. Shout out to MySpace. But anyway, MySpace was, and Black Planet too. Shout out to Black Planet. MySpace was Instagram before Instagram. All right, so it goes down in the DM. The DM was MySpace. It wasn't before Instagram, it was MySpace. And we'll talk about that on a different day. But anyway, I changed my MySpace name to that, and I started sending emails to basketball teams overseas. So mind you, I told you how I got on. I sent emails to agents. Now I'm sending emails to teams directly. So in the fall of 2007, around this time, so September, October, November, December, I sent about 10,000 emails to basketball teams overseas trying to get myself on to keep playing, trying to get my next contract. Now, you may be thinking, some of you may be thinking incorrectly, that there are 10,000 basketball teams in the world. There are not 10,000 basketball teams in the world for me to even email them. there are probably about teams that would actually sign an American player, because it costs money to sign an American player. You got to pay for their flight, their hotel, not their hotel, their apartment. You got to have the salary. There's not that many teams eligible to even sign an American player, let alone would they do it. Is maybe 2,000, and that's 2,000 jobs. So it's many teams who can sign more than one person, but it's not 10,000. There are not 10,000 teams, period, in the world. And I sent about 10,000 emails. So how did I do that? Because I sent emails to the same teams over and over again. And I didn't send the same email. Mind you, I know how to sell. I've been a salesperson. I've been a knock on the door salesperson. I've engaged in network marketing. I did Cutco knives when I was a freshman in college. Any of you did Cutco? Y'all remember Cutco, the little knives? They were very good knives, as a matter of fact. I remember the dude gave the demonstration. Those knives were like crazy. I would buy Cutco knives right now. Somebody try to sell me some. But anyway, no, don't take that literally. Don't try to sell me Cutco. But anyway, I've been in sales, so I understand that you got to kind of vary your message. You can't get the same message over and over again. I generally understood that. So I would send emails to the same team 5 times, and I would just use different subject lines. I would change the content of the message. Mind you, YouTube's out now, so I would make little highlight videos of myself and put them on YouTube, and then I would send those in the emails to the teams trying to do anything to get somebody's attention. So finally, around this time, like late December 2007, you can get my books on. Every book I have has a different website. So we got different landing pages for every book. Vinny, you send me a DM, I'll tell you. Somebody said Cutco knives are good, but not a good value. Yeah, you're probably right. They were like $700 back then. So I finally signed with a team in Montenegro. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is to say this. The way I got back on, because I was out of the game for a minute, the way I got back on was sending those 10,000 emails. And when I say 10,000, I do literally mean 10,000 emails. This was through, I think I was still using Hotmail at this time. Or it might have been Gmail. It might have been on Gmail. No, I don't remember, but it might have been Hotmail or Gmail. You remember Hotmail? Some people still have Hotmail. I send emails to people sometimes and they got a Hotmail address. Shout out to people still holding on to Hotmail. It's like the BlackBerry. But anyway, get on in Montenegro. This is 2008. Then I ended up playing in Germany. I went to Montenegro late 07 into 08. Then I go to play Germany after that. So now we get to around 2009. All right. So now let me give y'all the someone thought I was balling when I said hourly wage for Cutco didn't sell one knife. Shout out to Cutco. Yeah. So anyway, 2009. Now let's get to the next part because now we got to get to the business. We didn't even get to that yet. 2009, I'm out of a job again. All right. So again, I want Kimberly. You still got Hotmail? Shout out to Hotmail. Jeannie said you still have AOL. I didn't know some of y'all was still holding on to Hotmail and AOL. Shout out to people holding on to Hotmail and AOL. Shout out to y'all. I think my dad got Hotmail still, actually, as a matter of fact. He might have AOL too. But anyway, 2009, I'm out of the game again. So when I tell you I had a career as a professional athlete, I did, but I had a career because I had to keep doing stuff to keep it going. There were many times that there were gaps in my employment. So, and you have a resume and you go to an interview and they're like, can you explain this gap in your employment? I had gaps in my employment as a pro athlete. So 2009, no job. Now, a couple things happened here. Now we got to go back in the story. When I was in college, 2002, there was a bulletin board posting, different bulletin board. It said, do you want to make some money in the summertime? I said, yeah, I want to make some money in the summertime. This is a bulletin board. I'm talking to myself. I responded to the ad. This guy happens to be doing network marketing, or MLM, or some of you may call it a pyramid, whatever you want to call it. He's doing network marketing. He's selling this company called Prepaid Legal. These days it's called Legal Shield. Actually, a very good product even to this day. And I dabbled in that network marketing for that summer. Now, here's the reason why I'm bringing that up, because there are 2 things that happened in a network marketing meeting. Actually, well, 3 things. Number 1, any of you been to a network marketing meeting? I'm sure most of you, if you're over the age of 30, you've been to at least one. A network marketing meeting they were in hotels back then. I don't know what they do now, but you would get invited to a hotel meeting. So I go to the hotel meeting. Number 1, the speaker on the stage was speaking about income and money and business in ways that I never heard anyone talk about them, even though I have a 4-year college degree in business. I have a business degree from Penn State University. I never heard anyone on my college campus talk about business the way this guy on the stage at this network marketing meeting was talking about business. That's number 1. That was the insight to me. That opened my eyes a little bit, and it made me question, because the things that he was saying made sense. I'm like, why aren't any of my college professors talking about business the way this guy's talking about business? Because what he's saying was making perfect sense, or talking about money or income. That's number 1. Number 2, the guy said, because y'all know when you what am I thinking about here? I just lost my train of thought. Oh, when you go to a network marketing meeting, half the people in the room are already doing the business, and the other half of the people in the room, like me, are guests who got invited to the meeting. So half of the people are already doing the business. So the speaker on the stage said, any of you who is joining us today, or if you're already in the business, understand something. In order to build a business, you must also build yourself. And that means you need to invest in, and he used a phrase I never heard before in my life. He said, you need to invest in personal development. I had never heard of personal development. Now, I had always been into reading. I told you my mother's an educator. I was always into reading books. My parents still have a shelf wall full of books at the house that I grew up in to this very day. And we had encyclopedias. Those of you know what an encyclopedia is. It's like Wikipedia, but a book. All right, it's like Wikipedia, but it's 26 books, one for every letter of the alphabet. We had an encyclopedia set. We had all that stuff as kids, because my mom, again, into education, made sure her kids were good at reading and writing. So I've always been into reading, but I didn't know it was a term for this human psychology stuff and the way you think and how it can affect what you do, which is really the main thing that I focus on even to this day. So when this guy said personal development, I said, it's interesting. I never heard that phrase before. And then he started name dropping people who I never heard of. He name dropped. He said Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale. He said you need to read these people. Brian Tracy. He said you need to read these people's books. He said outside of the room, there's some nice ladies there sitting at a table and they got all the books. You need to be buying those books. You need to be reading those books because you cannot build a business if you do not build yourself. And I said, first of all, I didn't have the money to buy the books. I was a broke college student, but I said that makes sense. Again, this is the second thing he said that made perfect sense. And again, I asked myself, why aren't my college professors talking about this? I'm in college. Why are they not talking about this? I never heard anybody mention personal development in college for 4 years. I never heard anybody talk about business the way this guy was talking about business for 4 years. So that was the second thing that happened. And the third thing that happened, I can't remember what the third thing was. Third thing was, oh yeah, he mentioned a couple of books that I had to really take note of because again, I told you I was broke. I couldn't buy one of the books. The books were like $10. I had $10. 2 books he mentioned. One of them was called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I remembered the title. I didn't buy the book, but I remember the title. There was another one called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Again, didn't buy the book, remember the title. When I got back to college, I went on eBay. Now, this is before Amazon existed at this time, but this is before Amazon was the place. If you wanted to buy some random thing, you went on eBay. So I go on eBay and I look up both of these books. And there were people selling basically pirated copies of the books. It's basically like a PDF of the book. So I buy a 99-cent copy of Think and Grow Rich. I buy a 99-cent copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now, here's why I'm going back in the story to tell you this, because when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I read Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, it showed me that there is a intentional process to altering your thoughts, to alter your actions, to alter your outcomes. And as soon as I understood that, I said, this is what I've been looking for my whole life, because I've always been into human psychology. I've always been into how our thoughts lead to our actions, which lead to our results. I was always into it, but I didn't know there was a thing. I didn't know there was a whole world of people talking about it. That opened me up to that. And to this very day, the foundation of what we do over here is personal development. It is mindset. Then we get into the strategies, the business, the money, and all that stuff. But it starts in the mentality. That was the first thing. Second thing, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Now, Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is really, his focus is on real estate. That's really kind of like what the focus is. He's using real estate as the frame, but the book is not really about real estate. The book is about understanding that there is more than one way to make money in life besides having a job and trading your time for $1. And when I read that, I said, okay, this explains how there are other people in the world who go to work every day, just like my mom and dad do, but they make a whole lot more money. They're doing something that they're not doing. They have a different formula. And this is not a knock to my parents that they happen to see this, or any of you who's listening who your work career was similar to how my parents was or is. But I understood when I was young, sometimes I would say something to my parents or ask them for something. And they would say, well, do you think money grows on trees? Or do I look like I'm made of money? We're not rich. They would say things like this. I asked my mom, are we Democrats or Republicans? She said Democrats. I said, why? She said, because the Republicans only work for rich people. So I figured we weren't rich. But I said, there are people out there who work every day, just like my parents go to work every day, but they seem to have a whole lot more money. What's the difference? And again, I thought college would explain this to me. College never explained the difference. Robert Kiyosaki explained the difference. When I read the book, I realized, oh, there's another way to make money. You can have money working for you. You can acquire assets that put money in your pocket even when you're not working. Oh, this is how people who have more money are making it. It's not that they're working harder than everybody else. It's not that they're smarter than everybody else. It's not because they have a better job than everybody else. this system that my parents had trained my sister and I to go into, this system, all it does is allow you to get a little bit better than the previous. Okay, you can get a little bit better job. You can get a little bit of a raise. You can make a little bit more money. You can work a little bit harder. And then generation after generation, you might get a little bit better over time. But that's not really the difference. The difference is you got to play a different game. So when I read Robert Kiyosaki, I realized, oh, there are people out there playing a whole different game. And then I looked at my college professors and said, my college professors are playing the old game. They're just teaching you how to play it better. I don't want to be in this game. I realized that when I was in college. And mind you, I went to this network marketing meeting in college. So my last couple of years of college, I finished and I graduated, but I'm like, I'm not listening to these people, the professors. I'm not listening to them. I'll listen to them enough to graduate, but they don't seem to understand. I don't think they really understood it. I don't think they understood what the people at the network marketing meeting were talking about. So when I mention network marketing, I'm not in the network marketing business. I'm not trying to sell you anything. No business opportunity. I am forever grateful for the fact that I went to that meeting. And I went to a couple of those meetings and I got that experience, because I would not be an entrepreneur today had I not gone to those meetings. Because what I learned in those meetings opened my eyes to understanding that the way we think is malleable and it plays a huge role in what we do. And that if you want to win, sometimes there's an angle to running faster than everybody else is running. But there's another angle to just running a completely different race. You don't even have to be that fast, and you can beat everybody no matter how fast they're running, because you're playing a different game. See, if your only asset is you and you can only work from 9 to 5, there's only so much money you can make. All you can do is multiply your time by the amount that you make per hour. That's your cap. That's the max money you can make. That's your maximum salary. But if you have assets working for you, if you have investments, if you have, let's say, properties, or you just own some type of mechanism that makes money for you, even when you're not doing the work, well, you can make as much money as you want. You can multiply your money. And again, here's the part that really got me and still gets me to this day. So when you hear me talk about the educational system and I trash it, the root of why I trash the educational system is because they don't teach this. The educational system does not teach you this, that if you play a different game, you can get much further ahead, much faster than just by effort and being smart and getting a better job. They don't teach this. To this day, they're not teaching it. Now, there may be some teachers here and there who will give you a hint of it every now and then. The problem is the people who are teaching it, they're not playing that game. So why would they tell you about it? This is the problem. And I don't want to get into the education system. I've trashed them enough in the past, and I will trash them again in the future, just not today. So I say all that to say this. Fast forward in the story. I went back in the story for a reason. So that's the flashback to college. I kept these things in mind. Mindset, and there's another way to do business from network marketing. 2009, no job. Now the internet is starting to be a thing. No job in basketball. It is. Internet's starting to be a thing. More of a thing. It exists, but now it's a thing. Now people are like waking up in the morning and getting on the internet to read blog posts and look at MySpace and see who posted something on the internet. Now, at this time, there's a lot of people consuming the internet, but there's not a lot of people publishing on the internet. Now, here's another thing I did. Told you I was always into reading books. I just finished reading a new book that had just come out, and this was like the updated version of Think and Grow Rich, but it was for the digital world. And this book was called, some of you know this book, most of you probably know it. It's called The 4-Hour Work Week, written by this guy named Tim Ferriss. Excuse me. I just finished reading this book. In this book, Tim Ferriss is talking about many similar principles to what Robert Kiyosaki has spoke about in Think and Grow Rich. The difference between Tim and Robert Kiyosaki is that Tim was talking about how to apply these principles on the internet, in the digital world. So he was talking about things like, he was the first person I ever heard mention that you can hire a virtual assistant. I never heard of a virtual assistant. Meaning you can have somebody working for you who you never even met in person, and they don't even live where you live, but you just talk to them through the internet and they can do work for you that you don't have to do anymore. And because they live outside of America, in countries where the cost of living is a lot lower, you can spend a lot less money to hire a staff member who lives in India or the Philippines than if you hire somebody who lived in Florida or Texas, because someone in Florida might need $20 an hour, whereas someone in the Philippines only needs $4 an hour. And I said, wow, I never thought of that, because I'd always thought, hey, one day I'm gonna have a business and I'll have people working for me, but I got to make a lot of money because you got to pay them. But then when he said, well, you can hire somebody in India for $3 an hour, I said, oh, I can hire somebody right now. And in the book, he explains this. If you haven't read The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, please get the book and read it. Even if you don't want to be a business person, you should understand it. And I read that book, and then I applied what I remember from Robert Kiyosaki, and then I combined it with the internet. This is where what you see today began, 2009. Because what happened is I said, let me combine basketball, because at the time I still had this basketball ability and I'm trying to get my next job, which I eventually did get. Let me combine basketball with my closet internet geekdom with this entrepreneurial stuff that I learned. How do I combine all three and make something out of it? By combining all three, I created what we all now call having a brand, or being an influencer, or getting your name on the internet, whatever words you want to use for that. In 2009, this was not a thing. So those of you who are old enough to know, in 2009, this wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing to say, I'm going to get on the internet and I'm going to build a business just being on the internet. That wasn't a thing. If you were spending all your time on the internet in 2009, you were a bum living in your parents' basement who needed to get serious about life and get a real job. That's the way you were looked at in 2009. So someone said, is Fiverr safe? Absolutely, it's safe. I use Fiverr all the time. Yes, it's safe. So this is where I started to build what became my brand. So what I did was I already had these videos on YouTube where a lot of ball players were watching me. Some of you watching this remember me from back then. And it was mostly basketball stuff. So what I started doing in 2009, this is when I started putting out videos every single day. I wasn't putting out videos every day before that. It was just randomly. I started putting out videos every single day. Why? Because YouTube had just been purchased by this company called Google. Y'all know Google. Everybody knows YouTube. When Google bought YouTube, now they started monetizing the videos. Before that, if you put videos on YouTube, you couldn't make money from the videos. You just put the video out just because you wanted to. But now when Google buys YouTube, now they're like, you get ad revenue. So now the more people watch your video and they put ads on the video, mind you, those of you who are not old enough to remember, before 2009, you could watch YouTube all day and you didn't see a single ad because there were no ads. They didn't start the ads till Google bought YouTube because they needed to monetize the site, they need to make money from it. And they said, every time you have a video that is popular, we're going to put ads on the video and we're going to give you some of the money and we get some of the money. That's Google talking to me. So I said, all right, well, if that's the case, let me just put videos out as much as possible. I started putting videos out every single day in 2009. I have not stopped since. That's when I started putting videos out every day, 2009. So it's been 15 years. That's when it started. And this is all basketball stuff. So now there's a revenue stream. This is the point. Robert Kiyosaki, revenue streams. Now I got a revenue stream from YouTube. Now, Tim Ferriss talked about on his blog, on his website, because I read his book and then I became a fan of his work. He said, there's a way that you can test out a product on the internet and sell products online. I said, well, I got an audience online. Maybe I could sell them a product. Now, how did I get my idea? I got my idea because on YouTube, I always read the comments. Even to this day, I still read the comments on YouTube. I don't respond to every comment, but I read every comment. And even to this day, y'all see me when I do these lives, I still read the comments. And the reason I read the comments because I want to know what my audience wants, what they think, what they're hearing, what they're seeing, what they want next. Because that's the best way to create content is to talk to your audience. Audience is telling you what they want. And they're the ones paying attention, so you might as well pay attention to them. So I would read the comments, and players would often ask me, Dre, can you make a program for me? Which I couldn't do because there's too many people. But so one day somebody left a comment and said, Dre, why don't you just write down what you do and put it into a program and let everybody just work out like you? I said, that makes perfect sense. I combined that with what Tim Ferriss was saying, and I made a product out of it, and I charged $5 for it. My first ever product that I sold on the internet was $4.99. I had two of them. One of them was a dribbling program. One of them was a shooting program. They're still out to this day. It's on a website called hoophandbook.com. Hoop like a basketball hoop. Hoophandbook.com. Those products are still out. We raised the price a little bit, but they're still out online. Those are the first products I ever created. $4.99 a piece. I remember I put those out, and I followed Tim's little experiment, first of all. And I put those out. I put a video on YouTube just announcing that I had the product. I gave the link to the website, all that stuff. And I made my first sale that night. And at the time I had a BlackBerry phone. Y'all remember the Blackberries? And then you had a BlackBerry before the iPhone? The iPhone was out, but the BlackBerry was still in control for like maybe 2 years. Then the iPhone just took over. But I had the BlackBerry, and it was a little red light that would blink when you got an email or a text message on the BlackBerry. And I got an email that said, congratulations, you made a sale of $4.99. And when I made that sale, I said to myself, this is going to be bigger than basketball. I knew it in 2009. Now, mind you, I'm still trying to get back signed to play basketball. I'm still trying because I still have this. I'm in my mid to late 20s at this point. So I still want to maximize what I got physically to play ball. But at the same time, when that email came through and I made that $4.99, I said, this is better than basketball. Why? Because I didn't have to do much to do this. And I only had to do work one time to make that product. Now I could sell this product forever. I don't ever have to touch it again, and I can just keep making money. I said, if I play basketball, I got to actually play basketball to make money. If I stop playing basketball, I stop making money. but I can make a product one time and sell it over and over and over again and keep making money. So I had the entrepreneurial mindset already in me from Robert Kiyosaki and that network marketing meeting. All right, so now y'all understand where this is coming from. This was not just some random thing. So I started making more and more. I just kept making programs. So YouTube YouTube ads was a revenue stream. Now I got these programs. I had 2 programs, $5 a piece. That's another revenue stream. I said, I know more than 2 things about basketball. I ended up making 100 plus programs for basketball, literally 100 programs for basketball. That became another revenue stream from doing that. Now, at the same time, here's what else happened. I always wanted to write a book. I always wanted to write a book because people could tell I was pretty good at explaining my background. So even then in 2009, I would explain my background up until then. Like the rest of it hadn't happened yet. But the players who were watching me just wanted to know more about my backstory and who I was, et cetera. So I wrote my first book. It's called Buy a Game. Is this book right here? If you're on TikTok, is that one where you can see me? Buy a Game with the yellow letters. That's my first book. I wrote that in around 2009, 2010. Put it out for free. And that was just a story. It's the only book of mine that's a story. So everything I'm telling y'all here, maybe I'll make this into a storybook as well. But that's where I got started in writing books. Now, self-publishing was a thing. This wasn't a thing before. It was not a thing in 2005. You couldn't just write a book and put it out. That wasn't a thing. You had to go through a publisher. Now, you didn't have to go through a publisher. Now you can go straight to Amazon and put your own book out whenever you felt like it. I could write a book today and have it out by tomorrow morning. Any of you can, by the way. That's not special to me. Any of you can do this and it costs no money. Any of you can put a book out tomorrow if you wanted to. So now self-publishing becomes a thing. Then I got signed again to play basketball. So now I got multiple streams going all at the same time. And I knew the internet was bigger. That's when I started putting more focus on the internet. Then I started creating, another thing I got to tell you, about 2010. The basketball players who were following me, they knew my background. They knew everything I just told you up to this point. I never made a long video like this, but basically in bits and pieces, I would tell them the story. And they found out, you walked on to play in college and barely played in high school, and you keep trying to get on, and you're putting these videos out just to help players out and all that. They knew all that stuff, right? So they just started asking questions about mindset, like, Dre, what kept you working out every single day when nothing was working? Or how do you get the confidence to put yourself out there at, let's say, tryouts or go to an exposure camp when you're not even sure it's going to work? Or why'd you keep trying when you kept failing? Like you didn't make the high school team until your last year, sat on the bench, played that 1 year at Sunny Hill, sat on the bench, get cut from in college, you end up out of the program. After you get out of college, you still didn't get a job immediately. And then even now you're a pro, you still have times where you don't have a job. Why do you even keep trying? And then they would ask, what moved you to actually start? How'd you get started doing these things, like putting yourself out there and calling those 60 basketball agents? So answering those questions, I started talking about 4 specific things. Discipline, show up every single day to do the work. Confidence, putting yourself out there boldly and authentically. Mental toughness, keep trying and keep going after it, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And personal initiative, be a go-getter who makes things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. So when I started talking about these 4 things, this was the foundation of the business that I have today. That is called literally Work on Your Game. Foundation is the mindset, and these are the 4 pieces: discipline, confidence, mental toughness, personal initiative. Now, why does that matter? Is because the same things that I used to make it happen as an athlete are the same things that can be applied to business and a professional career. And there was the overlap between the two is what led to people who didn't play sports finding me. So what happened is I started making these videos every Monday on YouTube. This is in 2010. Discipline, confidence, mental toughness, personal initiative. 4th element is personal initiative. Make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And I started making these videos on YouTube because at this point, only content I had on YouTube was basketball. This is just showing you how to play basketball, dribbling, shooting, dunking, etc. So any of you who doesn't play basketball, you would not have noticed me back then because you weren't looking. But 2010, I decided, because people kept asking me about mindset, because they were asking me so much because they started to understand my mindset and they found out about my story. They wanted to know more. So I said, all right, every Monday I'm going to make this little video. I'm going to call it the weekly motivation. And I'm just put out this little 2-3 minute video just giving y'all a little mindset thing because y'all keep asking me about mindset. If y'all want me to do this, just let me know. And in 2010, the players said, yes, keep doing it. Do mindset. So I did the weekly motivation every Monday for 400 Mondays in a row. Mine's only 52 weeks in a year. So 400 Mondays in a row, I did the weekly motivation on YouTube. The other days of the week, mind you, I told you I was putting videos out every day. All the other days of the week was just basketball stuff: how to dribble, how to shoot, how to dunk, etc. Monday was the mindset video. When I started doing the mindset video, here's what happened. People who didn't play basketball started finding me. People like many of you. They started finding me and saying, Dre, I don't even play basketball, but I follow you on YouTube because that mindset thing you put out every week, that right there, that applies to me, and I don't even play ball. I would get parents coming to me saying, Dre, I don't follow you on YouTube, but my son was watching your YouTube video and I overheard you talking in the background, and it got me interested. That's how I started to have this. I started to blend the audience. So why I have professionals and business people and entrepreneurs in my audience, along with basketball players, or maybe some of you former basketball players in my audience to this day, is because of the mindset stuff. The mindset was the crossover between sports and the professional world. And still to this very day, the foundation, I tell you all this. I tell you all this all the time when I talk about certain things. I always tell you my background is as an athlete, and my frame is in the sports frame. Sports frame is that we got a scoreboard, and this is a results-based business, period. And people don't want to hear the excuses. It's about, did you win the game? Did you lose the game? What does it say on the scoreboard? That's the frame that I come from. And that not everybody's going to get in the room. Not everybody can sit at the table, because on a basketball team, everybody can't play. Somebody's getting cut. Somebody's sitting on the bench. I sat on the bench. So I can speak from this perspective because I have the authority and credibility to do so because of my background. So this is where the mindset stuff came in. So when the people who didn't play sports started telling me that my message resonated with them, this is when I realized, oh, this is great. This is a light bulb moment for me. Why? Because I always knew that I wanted to do something other than just sports after sports. I knew I wanted to play sports, but after I'm done playing sports, I didn't want to be a trainer or a coach or an analyst. I want to do something that has nothing to do with playing sports. I want to evolve past playing. And I knew I wanted to get into business somehow, some way. Remember, Robert Kiyosaki, network marketing. I didn't want to do network marketing, but I knew I wanted to be a businessman that it didn't have to have anything to do with being an athlete. So when I realized that mindset would be useful for people who didn't play sports, I said, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the mindset stuff from sports and I'm going to teach it to people who don't play sports. And that's what I started doing. That's when I started creating my own courses. I started writing more books about mindset. And I just started to kind of get known to people who were not athletes for the mindset stuff. So I was doing that from 2010 to 2015. I kept playing basketball till 2015. So at this point, I have basically two things going: playing basketball, and in my spare time, I'm making content on the internet, writing books, making courses. For those of you who don't understand, in the sports world, a long day of work is like 4 hours. All right, this is a long day of work in sports, like 4 hours. Practice twice a day, maybe an hour and a half each. You got a whole lot of time on your hands when you play sports. So when you see athletes, like they're streaming themselves, playing video games and making rap albums and stuff, reason you see athletes doing this is because we have a lot of time on our hands. A long day of work for a normal person at work is like 8-10 hours. A long day of work for a basketball player or a baseball player is literally like 4 hours. You can't practice 8 hours a day. It's impossible, physically impossible. So we have a lot of time on our hands. So I was using my time to write books, make courses, make content, etc., build what became the company that I have to this very day. So when I stopped playing basketball in 2015, my transition was a lot smoother than the average athlete because I had already been doing the thing that I wanted to do for 5 years. I was already doing it. I was doing it on the side. Now I just had to drop the basketball and now I could do that. So since 2015, that's what I've been doing. So I'll give you a few other things because I didn't even want to go this long, but I want to make sure I give you all the full context. In 2014, 15, I knew I was about to get out of basketball. I could see the end of the road. I just wanted to. I didn't have to. I wanted to because I saw more opportunity in business than I saw in basketball. And I was tired of just the hustle of when's my next job going to be and hoping that somebody chose me. Because when you play sports, you got to get chosen to play. You can't just choose. You don't own the team. But in business, I could do more to choosing. I had much more control in business than I had in basketball. I stopped playing. I was only 33 years of age. I could have kept playing. I still work out every day to this day, not in basketball, but still work out every day. Physically, there was nothing wrong with me. I just, mindset wise, I saw more opportunity, more potential in business. So I told this guy that I was thinking about maybe getting into professional speaking because when I started doing the mindset videos on YouTube, people who watched me said, Dre, man, you sound like a philosopher. You sound like a professional speaker. You sound like a college professor. You might want to get into maybe some type of speaking or something because you're really good at expressing yourself verbally. I didn't know there was such thing as making money for giving a speech. I didn't know it was a thing. So definitely is for the chosen old dog. So I had some guy tell me, hey, you ever heard of Toastmasters? So I go to a Toastmasters meeting And I just announced in the meeting, like, hey, I'm just trying to get into professional speaking when I get done playing basketball. I don't know how or where. I don't know how to do it. So some random dude comes up to me after the meeting. Now, mind you, the meeting was small. The small room, Miami Beach, is like 10 people in the meeting. It's 2 black guys in there. I'm one of the black guys and one other black guy. I don't know this dude. He comes up to me after the meeting and says, yo, I appreciate what you said in your speech, because Toastmasters is just a place to practice public speaking, by the way, and communication, rather, not just public speaking, but listening and speaking. He comes up to me and said, Dre, I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I'm getting done playing my sport, and I'm going to get into professional speaking too. This is just random luck, folks. This is not, I didn't know this, random luck, and I don't even know who he is. And again, you want to talk about initiative. I went to the meeting. Everybody catch that. Somebody said, have you ever heard of Toastmasters? I heard of it. I didn't know what it was. I Googled it. I saw there was a meeting in Miami Beach. At the time, I lived in Miami. I lived in South Beach at the time. I went to the meeting. Everybody hear that? Okay, this is initiative. I went to the meeting. I gave a little speech. It's like a 4-minute speech. When you first come, you give a 4-minute speech. And he said, I'm getting into speaking too. And he said, I'm going to an event that's all about speaking. And whoever I meet at the event, I'll pass you the information so we can both be on the same path at the same time. And thank you, CJ. So the event he was going to was called the National Speakers Association. Still exists to this day. They have chapters all over the country, every state, and they have national meetings. He goes to the meeting. He passes me this woman's information. I end up calling her. She ends up becoming my mentor. Why does she become my mentor? This is important because this is kind of like that foot in the door thing. She was already a full-time professional speaker. She already had books. She had courses. She had clients. She was doing consulting deals. She was already doing everything. Everything I eventually ended up doing, she was already doing full-time. And the reason that she gave me the time of day, I'm going to tell you why, because this is important too. She said, I called her. She lived in South Florida. She lived like 45 minutes away from me. She said, come up here and meet me at Starbucks. I'll go up there and meet her at Starbucks. And the meeting was supposed to be 30 minutes. It ended up lasting like 3 hours. The reason the meeting lasted 3 hours is because she would pause while she was talking and say, is any of this useful for you? And I would show her my computer screens. I was using Evernote and I was taking notes on everything I was basically writing down everything she said. I was basically transcribing everything she said. And I showed her the notes and she was like blown away because she said, she later on told me this. She said, Dre, before you called me, I had decided that I wasn't going to do those kind of meetings anymore because you are not the first person who called me and said you want to be a professional speaker. And I met with them and gave them a bunch of game. And most of them, everybody I gave game, they did nothing with it. I would sit there and tell them what to do and tell them what steps to take. And they did absolutely nothing with everything that I told them. So when you showed up and said, I want to be a speaker, the only reason I even met with you, this is important. So the only reason I even met with you is because when you called me, I asked you if you had a website and you did. I asked you if you had content on the internet and you did. I asked you if you had anything else and you had books, you had courses, you already were doing stuff. So I guessed that if I gave you the game that I gave to all those other people who did nothing, I guess you were an action taker who might do something with the information. That's the only reason I even met with you. Mind you, I wasn't paying her for the meeting. She said, the only reason I met with you is because you already had proven that you actually do stuff because you already had it on the internet. Because when I called her, I didn't even know her, but she was at her computer when I called her. So she was like, you got a web. And when I said it, I could hear her clicking. I could hear the clicks of her mouse and she was typing and like looking me up while we're talking. And mind you, this is a cold call, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't know this woman from anywhere. And the only reason she met with me is because I already had some collateral. Everybody follow what I'm saying here? So continuing, she gave me the game. So she's the one who explained to me, if you want to be a speaker, all right, here are the things you need to do. You need to create a framework around what you do. You need to kind of help people understand how somebody who played basketball could help a salesperson. Or how can you come up with a motivational speech from your experience as an athlete? You got to put all that together. They call it a framework. She explained all this stuff to me. Now I explain it to other people. All of that came from this meeting. That's how I ended up doing 4 TEDx talks. That's how I got into the professional speaking business. Eventually ended up opening up the coaching business and the things that I do today, consulting, speaking, coaching, books, courses, et cetera, et cetera. And that, in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, is how we got here. I think I gave y'all this is a pretty good background of how we got here. So now all you know exactly who I am, where I came from, how we got to where we're at. And let me see if I can take a couple questions if you got any. I think I saw a lot coming through TikTok while I was talking, but I'll take a couple here. If you got anything, go ahead and post it and we'll get to it. Then we'll go. I got to go to the bathroom badly. O-Dog said, no Southern hospitality in the Northeast. Oh, well, you're right about that. Ain't no Southern hospitality in the Northeast. You come from Philly, New York. You do not just randomly talk to people. At least not the era that I come from. I don't know how it is now. O-Dog said, people with negative attitudes do not have good luck because their output They're all off-putting outlook usually puts them out of position. Correct. That is 100% true. Two informed podcasts was going on. Oh, dog, Eckert was bought by CVS. That's correct. Yeah, I was on Black Planet back in the day. Absolutely. I was on anything internet. I was on Black Planet. I was on MySpace, and it was a website called hotornot.com. That wasn't as popular because it was only like I think you rated people like from a 1 to a 10. But yeah, I was on all that stuff. Anywhere you can meet girls on the internet, I was on it back then. That's just the facts. That's just the facts. And most of you know if you're in my age bracket, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's just what it was. Little skill was going on. Good morning to you. Single dad businessman. Good morning, sir. I'm on Instagram. All right, TikTok. What we got? All right, I think I saw most of y'all comments while I was talking. Renata, I think you were mentioning your son. How old is your son, Renata? I think that was you who said your son. Thank you, CJ. I appreciate the engagement there. People asking about my books. Every one of our books has a different landing page. The one that's most popular right now is this red one called The Third Day. You just go to thirddaybook.com. Just spell out the title, thirddaybook.com. That's where you can get that book. The book's free. Just cover the shipping. We'll send you a physical book. We also got digital versions. We got audio as well. So anybody asking about that, yes. But we have a different landing page for every book. Renata said, I learned about Eddie Griffin from the Philly cast that went to, you went to Eastern Shore? I know some people who went to Eastern Shore. Depending on your age, we might know some of the same people, Renata. Shout out to Eastern Shore, UMES. I've never been there, but I know a lot of people from Philly did go there. They had I think UMES had a nice Philly to Eastern Shore pipeline. I knew a lot of people who either mentioned it or they either hung out there or they actually went there. But they had a pipeline. Is Eastern Shore HBCU, Renata? I think it is. I think it's a HBCU, but I'm not sure. But you probably know. What do you mean, my son? He didn't make D1, but was recruited to Lackawanna and PA second chance school. Okay, so your son's in college, or maybe he's older. Maybe he got out of college already. That's what's up. Back in 2005, basketball was lit. Yeah, it was. And the internet was a wide open opportunity from 2005 to about 2010. There was Anna Mia asking about starting an agency. Send me a DM. My assistant will help you out. But back in 2005, 2010 was a great opportunity if you saw the internet for what it was going to be. If you saw it, then there was a great opportunity because you could get in on the ground floor, which I did. I got in on the ground floor of content creation because I saw the opportunities. Not that my material was that. My material was great, but that's not the reason why. One of the reasons why is because I saw the opportunity. I was offering something that nobody else was offering, and I hammered it. I just kept putting content out. I put out so much content. I got on YouTube to this day. I think I had 13,000 videos on YouTube last time I looked. CJ said you're super persistent. I agree with that. You are right about that. It's one of my strong assets. Good thing is anybody can be persistent. See, they already answered that one. Yeah, they were just happy that I was out the house. 23-year-old man eats a lot of food, uses a lot of electricity, and ain't like I had money to pay for it. So I think they were happy about it. Dysentery. Let's see. Thank you, Renata. Literally on my edge of my seat. Yes, I will take all of this and put it into a book at some point because buy a game is just up through college, but I'll put the longer version. Yes. And the videos on YouTube, all my videos are still on YouTube. So everything I told y'all that I was doing on YouTube is still there. The challenge all of you would have, you could try to find it on YouTube, is just I got so much content, it's going to be hard for you to find any particular video because I got so many. But I have 13,000 videos on YouTube. The exposure, that's a good thing. That's right. Renata said, you're probably minimizing your skill. YouTube back then was... yes, exactly. That's what it was. I mean, it was like homemade content. That's what it was. YouTube was homemade content back in the day. But I've never been a big video editor. I just did my stuff. So people back then had top 10 and get jealous when you were moved from their top 10. Oh, that's right. I remember that on MySpace. Yeah, you had and then they eventually made it bigger. So they started with like a top 8, then they made it bigger. You could have like a top 24 or a top 30. I do remember that. I forgot about that, Boss Man 2041, but I do remember that. Eterin said it was Facebook before Facebook. Yeah, MySpace was all of them. MySpace was TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook all rolled into one, and Black Planet all rolled into one. That's what it was. That's what MySpace was. It went down on MySpace. Shout out to MySpace. MySpace was fun days. Victoria says still has some. Yeah, so any book, again, start with the third day, thirddaybook.com. Spell it out, thirddaybook.com. Renata said, I thought I was balling when I say the hourly wage for Cutco. Shout out to Cutco. Shout out to everybody who done any kind of cold selling. They're $1,500 now. Now I get it. And they sell knives. They do sell some of those knives. Shout out to people at Hotmail and AOL. You were offered a job at Prepaid Legal. Or they are called Legal Shield now. They still have the service. My dad was my first customer, and he said he still has it. Like, he still has it, and that was like 20 years ago. He still has the service. It's actually a very good service. I have the service. I dropped it back then, but then I picked it back up again. The price went up, but it's still a very good service because you basically have a lawyer. It's basically like insurance for lawyers. That's what it is. Yes, every salesperson book. That's a Prepaid Legal is still a good product. So shout out to Prepaid Legal. Is Fiverr? Oh, you already answered that. Yeah, Fiverr is very safe. All right, you got those 4 components: discipline, confidence, mental toughness, personal initiative. All right, we got everything. All right, let's see. A couple more comments, then we'll wrap it up. CJ said, I like to communicate better in front of an audience because I am in the church world. Yeah, communication. I was just talking about that last week, CJ. If you didn't see, I did a live like last Friday. Yeah, it was Friday. Today's Monday. So look it up on YouTube. I talked about public speaking skills, and I got a lot of content on public speaking, CJ. So look that up on YouTube, and also feel free to send me a DM or send me an email, and we'll talk to you about how we can help you as well. Oh, he played football. Okay, that's what's up. That's what's up. Mean Jackson, most of them talked about MLK High School. Yeah, well, every city has an MLK High School. HBCU? All right, that's an HBCU? Okay. Shout out to UMES. Renata said, you gave me such a big idea for my business. Can I run it past you? Yes. Send a DM. My assistant will give you my email address. My email is dre@dreallday.com, or you can just, my assistant's email is on my YouTube channel, or you can just send a DM. Discipline tips. Man, that's a long conversation. Beanbag, can't answer that one right here off the top. But I have a whole book on discipline called The Mirror of Motivation. Get this book right here. And again, spelled out, mirrorofmotivation.com. Beanbag59. Mirrorofmotivation.com. Or when you go to this book, thirddaybook.com is a sales funnel. So after you go through, get the first thing, we're going to offer you more books. So you can get this book and this book at the same time to go to that funnel, thirddaybook.com, and we'll offer you more books. All right, everybody, I got to go to the bathroom. Tomorrow, we're going to get back to current events. And how many books? 35. Technically 35. Officially, I have 35 books written. But if you look me up on Amazon or Audible, you'll see I got like hundreds of titles because sometimes we break things up. But 35 officially, and I got like 8 in the chamber right now that we haven't even put out. We got to build funnels for all that stuff, and that stuff kind of is tedious. So anyway, all that said, folks, I really got to go to the bathroom. I didn't plan on going this long here today. Tomorrow, I'll be back. I'll do these guys 8 a.m. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. So if you like these, I'll be back tomorrow. Usually we talk current events, but I told everybody I was going to give you my background and who I am. So 8 a.m. Eastern tomorrow, I'll determine what the topic's going to be, and workonyourgameuniversity.com. If you'd like to work with me directly, have me as your direct coach, just go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's the link in my bio. And everybody have a great Monday. I will see you all tomorrow. We're out of here.